Welcome back. Throughout history, some wars are more than mere conflicts. They are seismic events that fundamentally reshape human civilization. These are the crucibles where technology, ambition, and human will collide to rewrite the rules of global order. Today we explore three catastrophic events that changed the world we live in forever. Let's begin with the Arab-Byzantine Wars. In the shimmering heat of the Arabian desert, a rider gallops across the sand, his horse's hooves kicking up clouds of dust that dance in the morning light. The year is 632 CE, and this messenger carries news that will reshape the world. The Prophet Muhammad has passed away. As the rider's silhouette disappears into the horizon, the greatest military confrontation of the medieval world is about to begin. A clash between the rising tide of Islam and the thousand-year-old Roman Empire, now known to history as the Byzantine Empire. The air in Constantinople's great palace crackles with tension. Emperor Heraclius, once the triumphant victor over the Persians, stands at his window overlooking the Bosphorus Strait. His aging frame belies the sharp mind that had saved the empire just a decade earlier. But now, at 67, his joints ache with gout as reports flood in from his southern provinces. Arab raiders, once dismissed as mere desert bandits, have transformed into a disciplined army that moves with unprecedented speed and purpose. This is not merely another border skirmish or tribal uprising. What unfolds in the coming decades will fundamentally alter the course of human civilization, reshaping the religious, cultural, and political landscape of three continents. The Arab-Byzantine Wars, spanning over 8 centuries, represent more than just a military conflict. They mark the birth of a new world order. In the markets of Damascus, Greek merchants still hawk their wares, calling out in a mix of Greek, Aramaic, and newly learned Arabic phrases. The city's ancient walls, built by the Romans and reinforced by generations of Byzantine engineers, stand as a testament to centuries of Roman rule. But change hangs heavy in the air. Local Christians whisper in the shadows of the great churches about the approaching Arab armies. Led by the brilliant general Khalid ibn al-Walid, known as the Sword of God. The Byzantine Empire of 632 CE stands as a colossus, its territories stretching from the Balkans to Egypt, from Italy to the Euphrates River. Its capital, Constantinople, houses nearly 500,000 souls behind walls that have never been breached. The empire's army is professional, disciplined, and heir to a millennium of Roman military tradition. Its economy, despite recent Persian wars, remains the most sophisticated in the Western world. Its gold solidus coined the medieval equivalent of the modern dollar. Yet something extraordinary is stirring in the Arabian Peninsula. The death of Prophet Muhammad has not, as many Byzantines hoped, led to the collapse of the new Islamic movement. Instead, under the leadership of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, the Arab armies are unifying with breathtaking speed. Their military system, combining the traditional Arab expertise in desert warfare with new tactical innovations, proves devastatingly effective. The initial encounters between Byzantine and Arab forces reveal a clash of military cultures that would define the coming centuries. Byzantine armies, heavily armored and moving with methodical precision, find themselves outmaneuvered by the lightning-fast Arab cavalry. The Battle of Ajnadain in 634 CE serves as a shocking wake-up call. Here, on the plains of Palestine, Khalid ibn al-Walid's forces of 35,000 warriors outmaneuver and destroy a Byzantine army nearly twice their size. The Byzantine response to this new threat reflects their traditional strategic thinking. Emperor Heraclius, drawing on centuries of Roman diplomatic tradition, attempts to play different Arab factions against each other. He dispatches envoys bearing gifts of gold and promises of alliance. But this time-tested approach fails to grasp the fundamental nature of the Arab expansion. It is not merely a military campaign, but a religious and social movement that binds its adherents together with unprecedented loyalty. In the scorching summer of 636 CE, along the banks of the Yarmouk River, the fate of Syria hangs in the balance. The Byzantine army, nearly 80,000 strong, faces the Arab forces in what will become one of the most decisive battles in military history. The air is thick with dust and the clang of weapons as the two armies clash. The Byzantine forces, led by Theodore Trithyrius, initially gain the upper hand through superior numbers and equipment. But then, in a masterpiece of tactical genius, Khalid ibn al-Walid executes a double envelopment that would have made Hannibal proud. The Battle of Yarmouk marks a turning point, not just in the war, but in world history. The Byzantine army, trapped against the deep ravines of the Yarmouk River, suffers catastrophic losses. The empire's elaborate defense system in Syria, built up over centuries, collapses in a matter of months. Damascus, the great Roman city that had stood as a bulwark of civilization for nearly 7 centuries, falls to the Arabs in 636 CE. The impact of these early Arab victories reverberates far beyond the battlefield. In the markets of Alexandria, Constantinople, and even distant Chang'an, merchants begin to speak of a new power rising from the desert. The sophisticated Byzantine administrative system, rather than being destroyed, is largely adopted by the Arab conquerors, who recognize its efficiency. Greek remains the administrative language in many conquered territories, creating a fascinating hybrid culture that would characterize the region for centuries to come. As the sun sets on this first phase of the Arab-Byzantine Wars, the world stands at a crossroads. The Byzantine Empire, though bloodied, remains standing. Its walls still protect Constantinople. Its navy still rules the Mediterranean, and its civilization still shapes the medieval world. But the rise of Arab power marks the beginning of a new era, one that will see the birth of new societies, new forms of art and architecture, and new ways of thinking about the relationship between religion, politics, and daily life. The stage is now set for a centuries-long struggle that will reshape the Mediterranean world and beyond. As night falls over the battlefields of Syria, both Arabs and Byzantines know that this is only the beginning. The great game of empires has entered a new phase, and the world will never be the same. A single flame flickers in the lamplight as a Greek scholar hastily copies texts onto parchment. The year is 640 CE, and Alexandria, the intellectual capital of the Mediterranean world, stands at the precipice of transformation. The Arab armies, fresh from their victories in Syria and Palestine, now turn their gaze toward Egypt, where centuries of Byzantine and Roman knowledge are housed in the world's greatest libraries and academies. The conquest of Egypt represents more than just a military campaign. It marks a crucial transfer of knowledge that will spark the Islamic Golden Age. In the narrow streets of Alexandria, Greek philosophers debate with Arab scholars, laying the groundwork for a cultural synthesis that will preserve and expand upon classical learning. The Arab commander, Amr ibn al-As, standing before the city walls, understands that he faces not just a military challenge, but a civilizational one. Emperor Heraclius, watching his empire crumble from his palace in Constantinople, struggles with failing health and mounting defeats. The Byzantine defense of Egypt falls to General John of Barca, who attempts to utilize the complex network of Nile canals and fortifications that had protected Egypt for centuries. But the Arab armies, having mastered the art of siege warfare in Syria, adapt their tactics to the riverine environment of the Nile Delta. The siege of Alexandria in 641 CE showcases the evolution of Arab military capabilities. The city's defenders watch in astonishment as Arab engineers construct sophisticated siege engines, their design incorporating both Byzantine and Persian influences. The Arab navy, though still in its infancy, successfully blockades the harbour, preventing Byzantine reinforcements from arriving by sea. Inside the city, the population of 200,000 faces difficult choices: resistance or accommodation to the new order. A decisive battle unfolds at Heliopolis, where 20,000 Arab troops confront a Byzantine force of 50,000. The Arabs employ innovative tactics, using their superior mobility to divide the Byzantine army into isolated segments. The result is a devastating defeat for Byzantine forces, opening the path to Alexandria. The city, after a 14-month siege, finally surrenders in September 642 CE. The fall of Alexandria sends shockwaves through the Mediterranean world. The city had stood as a symbol of Hellenistic and Roman civilization for nearly a millennium. Its capture represents not just a military victory, but a shifting of cultural gravity. The Arab conquerors, rather than destroying the accumulated knowledge of Alexandria, begin a systematic process of translation and preservation. Greek philosophical texts are rendered into Arabic, beginning a transmission of knowledge that will eventually help spark the European Renaissance. The Arab advance continues westward into Libya and the Maghreb. Byzantine forces, retreating to fortified coastal cities, wage a desperate defensive campaign. The ancient city of Cyrene, with its magnificent Greco-Roman architecture, becomes a battleground where classical and Islamic worlds collide. Arab armies, now numbering over 40,000, methodically reduce Byzantine strongholds along the North African coast. The war takes on new dimensions in the challenging terrain of North Africa. The Arabs forge alliances with Berber tribes, incorporating their knowledge of local conditions and their light cavalry tactics. The Byzantine strategy of relying on fortified cities proves inadequate against this combined force. By 643 CE, Tripolitania falls to Arab control, and the foundations of Byzantine power in Africa begin to crumble. Emperor Constans II, who succeeds his father Heraclius in 641 CE, at the age of 11, inherits an empire in crisis. From his palace in Constantinople, the young emperor receives increasingly desperate reports from his African provinces. The Byzantine navy, still dominant in the Mediterranean, launches counterattacks against Arab positions, but cannot prevent the steady erosion of imperial control along the North African coast. The conquest transforms the region's economic patterns. Traditional trade routes linking Egypt to Constantinople are redirected toward Medina and Damascus. The Arab dinar, based on the Byzantine solidus but bearing Islamic inscriptions, begins to circulate alongside traditional currency. In the markets of Alexandria, merchants adapt to new commercial networks that stretch from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. Yet this period also witnesses remarkable cultural continuity. In conquered territories, the Arabs maintain much of the Byzantine administrative structure. Greek-speaking bureaucrats continue to manage day-to-day governance. Churches remain open, though many gradually convert to mosques. The great lighthouse of Alexandria, the Pharos, continues to guide ships into harbour, now serving an Arab fleet that grows more powerful with each passing year. The events of 640 to 647 CE demonstrate the Arab ability to absorb and adapt Byzantine innovations while maintaining their own cultural identity. The fall of Alexandria and the conquest of Egypt represent not just territorial expansion, but the beginning of a new synthesis, one that will preserve classical knowledge through the coming centuries of change and transformation. The Mediterranean waters churn beneath the keel of an Arab ship as it cuts through the waves off the coast of Cyprus. The year is 647 CE, and something unprecedented is taking place: the birth of Arab sea power. In the workshops of Alexandria and the shipyards of Syria, Arab craftsmen are learning the secrets of Byzantine shipbuilding, transforming a people of the desert into masters of the sea. What unfolds over the next 2 decades will challenge 1,000 years of Roman naval supremacy. The Byzantine Empire had long considered the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum our sea. Their swift dromons, equipped with the terrible Greek fire, ruled the waves unchallenged. But in the harbours of Alexandria, Acre, and Tyre, a revolution is taking place. Under the guidance of captured Byzantine shipwrights, Arab workers shape mighty cedar trees from Lebanon into ships that will change the balance of power. The first Arab fleet, assembled by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, comprises 200 ships, each capable of carrying 100 warriors across the waves. The year 649 CE marks a turning point. The Arab fleet, under the command of Abdullah ibn Qais, launches its first major maritime expedition against Cyprus. The island's Byzantine defenders watch in astonishment as 1,700 ships appear on the horizon, an armada built in mere years. The successful raid on Cyprus demonstrates that the Arabs have mastered not just ship construction, but complex naval operations including navigation, logistics, and amphibious warfare. Emperor Constans II, now 18 years old, recognizes the existential threat to Byzantine power. The empire's prosperity depends on maritime trade routes, linking Constantinople to Italy, North Africa, and the grain-rich Nile Delta. The young emperor personally leads a fleet of 500 ships in 655 CE to confront the Arab navy off the coast of Phoenix, modern-day Finiki, Turkey. What follows is the Battle of the Masts, named for the forest of ship timbers that dotted the horizon. The Battle of the Masts represents a clash of naval traditions. Byzantine ships, relying on their traditional advantage in ship-to-ship combat and the devastating Greek fire, initially gain the upper hand. But Arab admirals have developed new tactics, treating naval warfare as an extension of their desert fighting style. Their ships, more numerous and maneuverable, swarm the Byzantine vessels. By day's end, Emperor Constans II barely escapes with his life, and Byzantine naval supremacy lies in tatters. The consequences of this naval revolution ripple across the Mediterranean. Traditional Byzantine control over maritime trade routes weakens, allowing Arab merchants to establish new commercial networks. The great ports of Syria and Egypt, once oriented toward Constantinople, now look south and east. Trade routes extending from China to Spain begin to shift, creating new patterns of commercial and cultural exchange that will define the medieval world. In 654 CE, the Arab fleet launches a daring raid on Rhodes, capturing the bronze fragments of the Colossus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The symbolic power of this act cannot be overstated. A monument to Hellenistic civilization is melted down and repurposed by the rising Islamic Empire. The bronze, reportedly weighing 13,000 pounds, is sold to a Jewish merchant from Syria, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. The period witnesses significant technological exchange. Arab shipwrights begin to combine Byzantine naval architecture with innovations from the Indian Ocean tradition. The resulting ships are faster and more seaworthy than their predecessors. The Arabs also adapt and improve upon Byzantine navigational techniques, developing new methods for celestial navigation that will influence maritime technology for centuries to come. By 668 CE, Arab naval power reaches its zenith with an ambitious campaign against Constantinople itself. A fleet of 400 ships establishes a base at Cyzicus, less than 100 miles from the imperial capital. Though this first siege will ultimately fail, it demonstrates the stunning transformation of Arab military capabilities. The once desert-bound warriors now challenge Byzantium at sea, its traditional element of supremacy. The naval revolution transforms not just military affairs, but the entire Mediterranean world. Coastal cities adapt to new political realities, building mosques alongside churches and accommodating Arab traders alongside Greek merchants. The maritime frontier becomes a space of cultural exchange, where Byzantine and Islamic civilizations meet, clash, and influence each other in countless ways. Yet the Byzantine Empire proves resilient. The loss of naval supremacy forces it to adapt, developing new defensive strategies and diplomatic initiatives. The empire begins to focus more on its European territories, a strategic shift that will have profound implications for the future of both Eastern Europe and the Mediterranean world. As the sun sets on this crucial period of the Arab-Byzantine Wars, the Mediterranean has become a contested space where two great civilizations compete and coexist. The Arab mastery of seafaring marks more than just a military achievement. It represents the emergence of a new world order, where power flows along sea lanes as well as desert caravan routes, and where ancient wisdom combines with new innovations to create something entirely unprecedented in human history. A mysterious green flame dances across the waters of the Bosphorus, its chemical composition so closely guarded that it remains a subject of scientific debate even today. The year is 669 CE, and Constantinople faces its greatest test. The Arab fleet, 1,800 ships strong, anchors in the Sea of Marmara, while an army of 80,000 men approaches the landward walls. The first Arab siege of Constantinople begins, a technological and logistical struggle that will define medieval warfare for centuries to come. The siege introduces an unprecedented convergence of military technologies. The Byzantine defenders deploy their secret weapon, Greek fire, a napalm-like substance that ignites upon contact with water. Developed by a Syrian refugee named Kallinikos, this incendiary weapon consists of a precise mixture of petroleum, quicklime, and sulfur, projected through bronze tubes called siphons. The Arab attackers counter with their own innovations, massive siege engines that can launch 200-pound stones, and sophisticated mining operations that attempt to undermine the city's legendary walls. Emperor Constantine IV, at just 20 years old, proves himself a worthy successor to the empire's great defenders. From his command post atop the Great Palace, he coordinates a defense that integrates naval tactics, infantry operations, and civilian resistance. The city's population of 800,000 becomes part of an intricate defensive machine. Urban farmers cultivate every available plot within the walls, while engineers maintain the complex system of cisterns and aqueducts that make Constantinople virtually self-sufficient. The siege transforms the surrounding landscape into an engineering battlefield. The Arab forces, led by Yazid, future Umayyad Caliph, establish a series of fortified bases along the Asian shore of the Bosphorus. At Cyzicus, they create a naval base capable of sheltering their entire fleet, complete with repair facilities and supply depots. The logistical operation required to sustain such a massive force, requiring 240,000 pounds of food per day, represents one of the most complex military operations of the medieval world. Technology plays a decisive role. The Byzantine walls, consisting of 3 layers with a combined thickness of 20 meters, incorporate advanced architectural features like prokyptoi, projecting towers that allow defenders to rain missiles on attackers from multiple angles. The Arab response includes the development of new siege weapons, including the double-armed manjanik, a trebuchet capable of hurling projectiles over 300 meters. The siege becomes a laboratory for military innovation, producing advances in metallurgy, engineering, and naval architecture. The winter of 670 CE tests both sides to their limits. The Arab fleet, unaccustomed to the harsh Black Sea weather, loses dozens of ships to storms. Byzantine sailors, using their superior knowledge of local conditions, launched devastating raids on Arab supply lines. The defenders employ an early form of biological warfare, releasing infected livestock to spread disease through the besieging army. The Arab forces counter by developing sophisticated quarantine procedures that presage modern military medicine. Cultural exchange continues even amid the conflict. Arab chroniclers express admiration for Byzantine architectural achievements, while Byzantine defenders adopt and modify Arab siege techniques. Prisoners on both sides serve as technological and cultural translators. The siege witness the emergence of a new military vocabulary that combines Greek, Latin, and Arabic terms, reflecting the synthesis of different martial traditions. By 673 CE, the siege settles into a war of attrition. The massive Arab army, divided into units called ajnad, rotates forces annually to maintain pressure on the city. This system, unprecedented in medieval warfare, allows the besiegers to sustain operations for years. Inside Constantinople, the population adapts to a new way of life. The city's famous hippodrome hosts military exercises instead of chariot races, while monasteries are converted into workshops producing weapons and armor. The role of women during the siege challenges traditional historical narratives. Byzantine sources mention female engineers maintaining the city's water systems, while Arab accounts describe women in their camp working as medical practitioners and logistical coordinators. The siege creates opportunities for social mobility, as the desperate situation forces both societies to utilize all available talent, regardless of gender or social status. Religious factors intertwine with military objectives. For the Arabs, Constantinople represents the golden apple mentioned in prophetic traditions. Byzantine defenders process icons along the walls, while Muslim warriors answer the call to prayer 5 times daily from makeshift mosques in their siege camps. Yet pragmatic cooperation often transcends religious boundaries. Christian Arab tribes serve in the Muslim army, while Muslim merchants continue to trade with the city through neutral intermediaries. The siege's impact on naval warfare proves revolutionary. The enclosed waters of the Bosphorus become a testing ground for new tactics. Byzantine ships, equipped with Greek fire projectors, develop the technique of Greek fire broadsides, coordinated volleys of incendiary weapons that can engulf entire enemy squadrons. Arab naval architects respond by experimenting with fire-resistant hull coatings and new ship designs that minimize vulnerable wooden surfaces. As the siege enters its final phase in 677 CE, both sides have been transformed by the experience. The Byzantine Empire emerges as a more militarized society, while the Arab forces gain sophisticated siege and naval capabilities. The transfer of technology and knowledge during this period, though born of conflict, helps lay the groundwork for the medieval world's most dynamic civilization. Greek fire ignites on contact with the Bosphorus waters, its chemical reaction defying modern attempts at replication. This mysterious substance, which secured Byzantine naval supremacy for centuries, represents just one facet of the remarkable military revolution that transforms both empires in the late 7th century. The period following Constantinople's successful defense witnesses an unprecedented arms race, reshaping warfare across the Mediterranean world. The Treaty of 678 CE between Caliph Muawiyah I and Emperor Constantine IV establishes a new equilibrium, with the Arabs agreeing to pay an annual tribute of 3,000 gold pieces, 50 horses, and 50 slaves. This diplomatic settlement, however, masks a deeper transformation occurring within both societies. The siege's technological innovations catalyze a series of military reforms that ripple across both empires, fundamentally altering their approach to warfare. Byzantine military engineers, building on their successful defense, develop increasingly sophisticated versions of their mechanical artillery. The new Helepolis, a mobile siege tower standing 40 feet tall, incorporates multiple levels of stone-throwing machines and protective screens made of iron-reinforced wood. These innovations spread rapidly through the Mediterranean world, influencing military architecture from Spain to Persia. The Arab response proves equally innovative. Under Abd al-Malik's reign, the Caliphate establishes the first professional Muslim navy, the Asatil. Naval architects in Alexandria and Tyre develop new ship designs that combine Byzantine and Arab features. The resulting vessels, called shini, feature a revolutionary hull design that increases speed and maneuverability while requiring fewer rowers, a crucial advantage in extended campaigns. Military organization undergoes radical change. The Byzantine theme system, originally an administrative division, evolves into a sophisticated military territorial unit. Each theme maintains a standing force of 4,000 cavalry and 8,000 infantry, supported by a network of signal towers and fortified supply depots. This system proves so effective that elements of it are adopted by the Arab military, particularly in frontier regions. The period witnesses crucial developments in metallurgy. Arab smiths, working in Damascus, perfect new techniques for creating composite steel, combining the flexibility of Indian wootz steel with local iron ores. The resulting weapons demonstrate unprecedented combinations of hardness and elasticity. Byzantine armorers counter by developing new forms of lamellar armor, using overlapping plates of case-hardened iron that provide superior protection while maintaining mobility. Urban warfare techniques evolve rapidly. The Arabs pioneer new methods of undermining fortifications, using sophisticated mathematical calculations to determine optimal mining angles. Byzantine defenders counter with seismic detection devices, bronze vessels filled with water and small bells that can detect underground excavation. These innovations spread throughout the Mediterranean, influencing siege warfare for centuries. The military revolution extends to logistics and supply. The Arabs develop a sophisticated camel relay system capable of moving messages and light cargo across their empire at unprecedented speeds, up to 250 kilometers per day. The Byzantines respond by enhancing their naval logistics, creating a network of fortified ports equipped with mechanical cranes and standardized storage facilities that can rapidly resupply their fleets. Economic warfare emerges as a crucial frontier. The Arabs establish new trade routes that bypass Byzantine-controlled waters, while simultaneously developing techniques for minting high-quality gold dinars that challenge the supremacy of Byzantine currency. The resulting economic competition drives innovations in banking and commerce that benefit both societies. Military medicine advances significantly during this period, Arab physicians, building on Byzantine and Persian traditions, developed new techniques for treating battle wounds. The first dedicated military hospitals appear in both empires, featuring specialized wards for different types of injuries and systematic approaches to preventing infection. These medical innovations save countless lives and establish principles that influence military medicine for centuries. The period also witnesses crucial developments in military communication. The Byzantine beacon system, stretching from the Taurus Mountains to Constantinople, can relay messages over 750 kilometers in under an hour. The Arabs developed their own system of smoke signals and mirror stations, creating networks that maintain administrative control over vast territories. Chemical warfare evolves beyond Greek fire. Both sides experiment with toxic smokes and incendiary materials. Arab chemists develop early forms of smoke screens using sulfur and arsenic compounds, while Byzantine engineers create new delivery systems for their incendiary weapons, including primitive forms of cluster munitions that can cover large areas with burning material. By 695 CE, these military innovations have transformed both empires. The Byzantines emerge as a more compact but technically sophisticated state, while the Arab Caliphate combines traditional mobility with new forms of military organization. The period's innovations in metallurgy, engineering, and logistics establish patterns that influence warfare until the Gunpowder Revolution. The military revolution of 678 to 695 CE demonstrates how technological competition between rival powers can drive innovation across multiple fields. The period's developments in engineering, medicine, and logistics create a legacy that extends far beyond the immediate conflict, influencing military and civilian technology for centuries to come. A single gold solidus lies buried in the soil of Carthage, bearing the image of two emperors, one standing, one fallen. This coin, minted in 695 CE, tells the story of a period when both empires turn inward, as civil wars and revolts reshape the Mediterranean world. The Byzantine Empire endures 3 emperors in rapid succession, while the Umayyad Caliphate faces its first major succession crisis. These internal conflicts reshape both societies, setting the stage for the next phase of their centuries-long confrontation. In Constantinople, the deposition of Justinian II in 695 CE marks the beginning of a 20-year period of internal strife. The young emperor's nose is cut off, a Byzantine method of delegitimizing royal authority, and he is exiled to Cherson in the Crimea. This act of political violence triggers a cascade of usurpations that threatens to unravel the empire's carefully maintained military and administrative systems. The theme system, backbone of Byzantine military power, begins to fracture. Individual theme commanders, controlling forces of up to 12,000 men each, become kingmakers in the imperial succession. The Opsician theme, with its 32,000 troops stationed across the Bosphorus from Constantinople, emerges as a particularly powerful faction. Military units previously focused on defending against Arab incursions now turn their weapons against rival Byzantine factions. Meanwhile, the Arab world faces its own succession crisis. The death of Abd al-Malik in 705 CE sparks conflicts between various branches of the Umayyad family. The resulting power struggle reveals the tensions inherent in ruling an empire stretching from Spain to Central Asia. Local governors, commanding armies of up to 45,000 men, begin to act with increasing autonomy. Technology continues to evolve despite, or perhaps because of, these internal conflicts. Byzantine weapon makers develop new variants of the recurve bow, capable of penetrating armor at 200 meters. Arab engineers perfect new techniques for constructing ribat, fortified monasteries that combine military and religious functions. These structures, typically housing garrisons of 500 men, become centers for both spiritual training and military preparation. The period witnesses crucial developments in siege warfare. The Arabs construct a new type of mangonel, capable of hurling 400-pound stones over 300 meters, while Byzantine engineers develop counterweight trebuchets that achieve even greater range and accuracy. These weapons transform the nature of fortification, leading to the development of new architectural techniques, including angled walls and reinforced foundations. Naval technology advances significantly. Byzantine shipwrights create a new class of dromon, incorporating a central tower armed with both conventional artillery and Greek fire projectors. These ships, requiring crews of 200 men each, prove particularly effective in suppressing coastal revolts. Arab naval architects respond by developing ships with higher freeboard and reinforced hulls, better able to survive attacks from these new weapons. Economic warfare intensifies. The Arabs establish a new gold standard for their dinar, setting its weight at 4.25 grams of pure gold. This precise standardization challenges Byzantine currency dominance and forces Constantinople to reform its own monetary system. The resulting competition leads to innovations in minting technology and the development of new anti-counterfeiting measures. The period sees crucial developments in military medicine. Byzantine physicians pioneer new techniques for treating facial wounds, a response to the increasing frequency of political mutilation. Arab medical texts from this period describe sophisticated procedures for treating battlefield injuries, including the first documented uses of catgut sutures and alcohol as an antiseptic. Intelligence gathering becomes increasingly sophisticated. Both empires develop networks of spies and informants, leading to innovations in encryption and secure communication. The Byzantines perfect a system of coded signals using combinations of flags and smoke signals, while Arab intelligence services develop new methods of concealing messages within seemingly innocent objects. Military organization undergoes significant changes. The Arabs introduce the system of jund, military districts that combine administrative and military functions. Each jund maintains detailed registers of available manpower and resources, allowing for rapid mobilization in times of crisis. The Byzantines respond by reorganizing their theme system, creating smaller, more flexible units better suited to dealing with both internal and external threats. By 717 CE, both empires emerge, transformed from their internal struggles. The Byzantine Empire, under Leo III, regains stability and military effectiveness. The Umayyad Caliphate, though still powerful, shows signs of the structural weaknesses that will eventually lead to its downfall. The stage is set for a new phase of conflict that will test both empires to their limits. These 22 years of internal conflict reshape the medieval Mediterranean world. The military innovations driven by civil wars, from new siege engines to improved medical techniques, create lasting changes in how warfare is conducted. The period's political instability paradoxically leads to administrative innovations that strengthen both empires, setting the stage for the next phase of their centuries-long confrontation. Beneath the waters of the Golden Horn, archaeologists discover the remnants of massive chain links, each weighing 300 pounds. These iron sentinels once formed part of a mighty barrier that spanned the harbour's entrance, a crucial element in the most ambitious siege of the medieval world. The year is 717 CE, and the Umayyad Caliphate launches its supreme effort to capture Constantinople. deploying 1,800 ships and an army of 120,000 men in what becomes known as the Second Arab Siege of Constantinople. Caliph Sulayman ibn Abd al-Malik commits unprecedented resources to this campaign. The Arab fleet, assembled from shipyards across the Mediterranean, includes new types of vessels specifically designed for siege operations. These ships feature reinforced rams, elevated fighting platforms, and innovative systems for deploying siege engines at sea. The army brings with it 12,000 pounds of naphtha-based incendiaries, 80 siege engines, and supplies calculated to sustain operations for 3 years. Emperor Leo III, the newly crowned Byzantine ruler, prepares his defenses with scientific precision. The city's walls, already 20 meters high and 5 meters thick, receive additional reinforcement. Engineers install a complex system of counterweight trebuchets, capable of launching projectiles weighing up to 900 pounds. The Byzantine navy, though numbering only 400 ships, possesses superior technology, including the latest versions of Greek fire projectors with an effective range of 50 meters. The siege introduces unprecedented technological sophistication. Arab engineers develop mobile siege towers reaching heights of 50 feet, mounted on specially designed ships. These floating fortresses carry up to 50 warriors each, protected by iron plates and wet hides designed to resist Greek fire. Byzantine defenders counter with a new type of ballista that can penetrate these defenses at ranges up to 300 meters. Military logistics reach new levels of complexity. The Arab army constructs a series of fortified supply bases along the Asian shore, each capable of housing 20,000 men and storing provisions for 6 months. These bases feature sophisticated water management systems, including underground cisterns with a total capacity of 50,000 cubic meters. The Byzantines respond by developing new methods of urban agriculture, converting every available space within the walls to food production. Naval warfare evolves rapidly during the siege. Byzantine ships deploy an improved version of Greek fire that burns at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Arab naval architects counter by developing ships with compartmentalized hulls and new fire-resistant materials, including a coating made from felt, vinegar, and clay. The resulting naval battles introduce tactics that will influence maritime warfare for centuries. The winter of 717 to 718 CE proves exceptionally harsh, with temperatures dropping to -10 degrees Celsius. The Arab fleet, unprepared for such conditions, loses 500 ships to ice and storms. The Byzantines, drawing on centuries of experience with Black Sea weather, use the conditions to their advantage. Their ships, equipped with reinforced bow sections, cut through the ice to attack Arab supply vessels, causing severe logistical disruptions. Chemical warfare reaches new sophistication. The Arabs deploy an early form of poison gas, created by burning a mixture of sulfur and arsenic compounds in underground tunnels. Byzantine engineers counter with a ventilation system that uses the city's complex network of underground cisterns to disperse these toxic fumes. Both sides develop new types of incendiary weapons, including clay grenades filled with naphtha and quicklime. The siege's impact extends beyond military technology. Byzantine scientists develop new methods of food preservation, including a technique for treating grain with calcium oxide to prevent spoilage. Arab physicians establish sophisticated field hospitals that classify wounds into 5 levels of severity, each with standardized treatment protocols. These medical innovations reduce combat death rates by an estimated 30%. Communication systems achieve new levels of sophistication. The Byzantines perfect a system of heliograph stations that can transmit messages across the Bosphorus using polished bronze mirrors. The Arabs develop a complex network of signal fires that can relay messages from Damascus to the siege lines in under 6 hours. These systems represent early examples of optical telecommunication networks. As the siege enters its final phase in 718 CE, both sides have been transformed by the experience. The Byzantine defense demonstrates the superiority of their integrated defense system, combining advanced technology with sophisticated logistics. The Arab forces, though ultimately unsuccessful, develop innovations in siege warfare that will influence military practice for centuries. The conclusion of the Second Arab Siege in 718 CE marks a turning point in medieval military history. The Byzantine victory ensures the survival of the empire for another 7 centuries, while the Arab retreat leads to fundamental changes in caliphal military strategy. The siege's technological innovations, from advanced incendiary weapons to sophisticated logistics systems, create a legacy that influences warfare well into the modern era. A peculiar brass device, discovered in the ruins of a Byzantine workshop, reveals the sophistication of 8th century military technology. This mechanical calculator, calibrated with precise markings, allows artillery officers to compute firing solutions for various projectile weights and distances. The device exemplifies how both empires transform warfare into an increasingly exact science during the decades following the Second Siege of Constantinople. The period witnesses a fundamental shift in military doctrine. The Umayyad Caliphate, recognizing the impracticality of capturing Constantinople, redirects its resources toward developing a new strategic approach. The annual summer raids, known as Sawaif, evolve into precisely coordinated operations, involving forces of 20,000 to 30,000 men. These raids target specific economic and military objectives rather than attempting territorial conquest. Byzantine military organization undergoes equally profound changes. Emperor Leo III restructures the theme system, creating smaller, more mobile units of 2,000 to 4,000 men called turmai. These forces, equipped with standardized weapons and supported by dedicated logistics units, can deploy within 48 hours of receiving orders. The resulting military system combines the flexibility of Arab forces with traditional Byzantine discipline. Technological innovation accelerates in both empires. Byzantine engineers develop a new type of composite bow that achieves unprecedented accuracy. These weapons, requiring 160 pounds of draw force, can hit man-sized targets at ranges up to 200 meters. Testing reveals that their arrows can penetrate standard mail armor at 150 meters. Arab armorers respond by developing new types of lamellar armor, incorporating hardened steel plates with precisely calculated overlap patterns. The period sees crucial developments in fortification technology. Byzantine architects perfect the concept of clustered defense, with major fortresses surrounded by networks of smaller outposts. Each outpost maintains visual contact with at least 2 others, creating an integrated early warning system. The Arabs adapt this concept to their Ribat system, developing standardized fortress designs that can be rapidly constructed using prefabricated components. Naval warfare enters a new phase of sophistication. Byzantine shipwrights develop a new class of swift patrol vessel, the UCI, capable of sustained speeds of 7 knots. These ships, 85 feet in length and requiring crews of only 50 men, prove highly effective at intercepting Arab raiders. The Arab response includes the development of larger transport ships with reinforced hulls, capable of carrying 200 men or 40 horses. Military medicine achieves new levels of organization. Byzantine field hospitals establish the first systematic triage systems, categorizing wounds into 4 levels of severity. Arab Medical Corps developed mobile field units that can treat up to 100 casualties per day, supported by camel-mounted medical supplies and pharmaceutical preparations. Both sides make significant advances in surgical techniques, particularly in treating arrow and spear wounds. The period witnesses crucial developments in military chemistry. Byzantine laboratories perfect new formulations of Greek fire, achieving longer burn times and greater adhesion to target surfaces. Arab chemists develop countermeasures, including fire-resistant coatings made from asbestos fibers mixed with clay and vinegar. Both sides experiment with smoke screens and chemical weapons, leading to advances in metallurgy and materials science. Economic warfare becomes increasingly sophisticated. The Byzantines establish a network of fortified marketplaces along their eastern frontier, each capable of supporting military operations while maintaining commercial contacts with Arab territories. These emporia combine defensive features with facilities for storing and trading goods, creating new patterns of frontier economics that blur the lines between warfare and commerce. Intelligence gathering evolves significantly. Both empires develop networks of permanent observation posts, equipped with sophisticated distance measuring devices and standardized reporting systems. The Byzantines' perfect methods for intercepting and decoding Arab military communications, while Arab intelligence services develop new techniques for mapping fortress defenses and tracking troop movements. The period sees important developments in military logistics. Byzantine forces establish a system of fortified supply bases, each maintaining 3 months of provisions for 5,000 men. Arab armies develop parallel systems of mobile supply depots, using camel trains capable of moving 100,000 pounds of supplies per day. Both sides make advances in food preservation and water management, crucial for sustaining extended campaigns. By 750 CE, these transformations create a new military equilibrium. The Byzantine Empire emerges as a more compact but highly efficient state, while the Arab world enters a period of internal transformation with the fall of the Umayyad Caliphate. The military innovations of this period, from sophisticated siege engines to advanced medical techniques, establish patterns that influence warfare for centuries to come. The technological and organizational developments between 722 and 750 CE demonstrate how military competition drives innovation across multiple fields. Advances in engineering, medicine, and logistics create lasting impacts that extend far beyond the immediate conflict, influencing both military and civilian technology through the medieval period and beyond. Hidden within the layers of a manuscript from Baghdad's House of Wisdom lies a detailed treatise on siege machinery, its pages filled with precise mathematical calculations and intricate mechanical drawings. This document, dated 751 CE, represents the beginning of a new era in the Arab-Byzantine conflict. As the Abbasid dynasty rises from the ashes of Umayyad rule, warfare transforms into an increasingly systematic science, driven by scholars and engineers from both empires. The Abbasid Revolution of 750 CE reshapes the nature of the conflict. The new dynasty, establishing its capital at Baghdad, brings Persian and Central Asian military traditions into the Arab arsenal. Scientific knowledge becomes a strategic priority, with the Abbasids collecting and translating military treatises from Greek, Persian, and Indian sources. Within their first decade, they established dedicated engineering corps numbering 4,000 men, equipped with standardized tools and technical manuals. Byzantine Emperor Constantine V responds to this new threat with his own military reforms. The Byzantine army develops specialized units of military engineers, each consisting of 200 men trained in both construction and demolition. These units carry precise technical specifications for fortifications, siege engines, and defensive works, allowing rapid response to enemy innovations. Their mobile workshops can produce replacement parts for siege engines within 24 hours. Naval technology reaches new heights of sophistication. Abbasid shipwrights develop a new class of warship, the Darura, combining Greek and Persian design elements. These vessels, 120 feet in length and requiring crews of 150 men, feature innovative underwater rams and reinforced hull sections capable of withstanding Greek fire. Byzantine naval architects counter with ships equipped with rotating turrets that can project Greek fire in any direction. The period witnesses crucial developments in metallurgy. Abbasid smiths perfect new techniques for producing Damascus steel, achieving unprecedented combinations of hardness and flexibility. Analysis reveals carbon content precisely controlled at 1.5%, creating blades capable of maintaining their edge through thousands of impacts. Byzantine armorers respond with new types of composite armor, combining hardened steel plates with bronze reinforcements. Military architecture evolves significantly. Byzantine engineers develop a new type of fortress, incorporating multiple layers of defense, each calculated to exact mathematical specifications. These structures feature walls built at precise 75-degree angles to maximize the effectiveness of defensive fire, while incorporating sophisticated water management systems capable of supporting garrisons of 1,000 men for up to 6 months. Abbasid siege engineers counter with new types of mobile towers, featuring hydraulic lifting mechanisms that can raise assault platforms to heights of 60 feet. Chemical warfare enters a new phase of sophistication. Byzantine laboratories develop an enhanced version of Greek fire that burns at temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees Celsius. Abbasid chemists respond with new fire-resistant materials, including a coating made from pulverized glass, clay, and animal blood that can withstand direct flame for up to 30 minutes. Both sides make advances in smoke weapons and chemical incendiaries, leading to new developments in protective equipment. Military medicine achieves unprecedented organization. The Abbasids establish a system of mobile field hospitals that can treat 300 casualties per day, supported by dedicated corps of pharmacists and surgeons. Byzantine medical services develop new techniques for treating burn wounds, including early forms of skin grafting. Both sides make significant advances in preventing infection, with mortality rates from battlefield wounds dropping by 40% compared to the previous century. Intelligence gathering becomes increasingly professional. The Abbasids create a dedicated corps of military surveyors equipped with sophisticated measuring devices, including an early form of telescope capable of accurate range finding up to 1,000 meters. Byzantine counterintelligence develops new methods of encrypting military communications, using complex mathematical codes that remain unbroken for centuries. The period sees crucial developments in military logistics. The Abbasids perfect a system of relay stations that can move messages and supplies across their empire at speeds averaging 250 kilometers per day. Byzantine forces develop parallel networks of fortified supply bases, each maintaining standardized stockpiles of weapons and equipment that can outfit 5,000 men within 48 hours. By 775 CE, these innovations create a new military paradigm. The Byzantine Empire maintains its defensive superiority, while the Abbasid Caliphate develops unprecedented capabilities for sustained offensive operations. The military technology of this period, from sophisticated siege engines to advanced medical techniques, establishes patterns that influence warfare until the gunpowder revolution. The transformation of warfare between 750 and 775 CE demonstrates how political change drives military innovation. The rise of the Abbasid dynasty, with its emphasis on systematic knowledge and engineering, creates a new kind of conflict where scientific expertise becomes as crucial as martial skill. These developments influence not just military affairs, but the entire course of medieval technological development. Scattered across 3 continents lie the remnants of an arms race that shaped our modern world. From a water-powered trip hammer in the ruins of Constantinople to precision-ground lenses in an Abbasid observatory, these artifacts tell the story of how military competition drove technological innovation across medieval society. As the 8th century draws to a close, the Arab-Byzantine Wars enter their final transformative phase, leaving a legacy that continues to influence military and civilian technology. The period witnesses the maturation of military engineering into a precise science. Byzantine technical manuals from 776 CE reveal sophisticated mathematical formulas for calculating artillery trajectories, considering variables such as projectile weight, wind speed, and atmospheric conditions. These documents show that engineers could achieve accuracy rates of 70% at ranges up to 400 meters, using standardized measurement tools and pre-calculated firing tables. Abbasid military technology reaches new heights of sophistication. Their engineers perfect a new type of composite siege engine that combines multiple weapon systems. These machines, standing 75 feet tall and requiring crews of 100 men, can simultaneously launch heavy projectiles, spray incendiary materials, and provide elevated platforms for archers. Archaeological evidence reveals that their construction involved precise mathematical calculations and standardized components that could be assembled on site. The Byzantine response demonstrates equal innovation. Their military architects develop a new type of defensive works called the Pentapergion, a 5-towered fortress designed using principles of geometric optimization. These structures, requiring 2.5 million cubic feet of stone and 50,000 man-days to construct, incorporate advanced features such as automated water-lifting mechanisms, pressurized firefighting systems, and sophisticated acoustic design for early warning. Naval technology achieves unprecedented sophistication. Byzantine shipwrights create vessels equipped with mechanical depth-sounding devices and early forms of celestial navigation equipment. These ships can maintain position accuracy within 5 nautical miles over journeys of 1,000 miles. Abbasid naval engineers respond with ships featuring adjustable underwater rams and sophisticated systems for calculating wind and current effects on vessel movement. The period sees crucial developments in military medicine. Byzantine field hospitals established the first systematic programs for training combat surgeons, with standardized procedures for treating 20 different types of battlefield injuries. Abbasid Medical Corps developed new techniques for preventing infection, including the use of distilled alcohol as an antiseptic and standardized protocols for wound cleaning that reduce mortality rates by 60% compared to previous practices. Military organization reaches new levels of complexity. The Byzantine theme system evolves into a sophisticated military-industrial complex, with each theme maintaining dedicated manufacturing centers capable of producing standardized equipment for 10,000 men within 30 days. Abbasid forces develop parallel systems of mobile workshops that can repair or replace any piece of military equipment within 48 hours of battle damage. The impact extends far beyond military affairs. Technological innovations driven by warfare find civilian applications throughout society. Byzantine water-lifting technology, originally developed for fortress defense, transforms agricultural irrigation. Abbasid advances in optics, initially pursued for military observation, lead to improvements in astronomical instruments and early understanding of light refraction. Economic warfare reaches new sophistication. Both empires develop complex systems for managing military expenditure, including early forms of cost-benefit analysis for different types of military operations. Byzantine financial records show precise calculations of the resources required to maintain different types of military units, while Abbasid documents reveal sophisticated systems for predicting and managing the economic impact of prolonged campaigns. The period witnesses crucial developments in military intelligence. Byzantine forces perfect methods for long-range reconnaissance, including early forms of telescopic observation devices capable of accurate distance measurement up to 2,000 meters. The Abbasid intelligence services developed sophisticated systems for encoding and transmitting military information, using mathematical principles that influenced the development of cryptography for centuries. The war's impact on urban development proves particularly significant. Cities throughout the Mediterranean region adopt defensive innovations originally developed for military purposes. Water management systems, firefighting techniques, and architectural principles tested in warfare find widespread civilian application. The result is a transformation of urban life that combines security with technological sophistication. By 800 CE, the Arab-Byzantine Wars have reshaped the medieval world in fundamental ways. The conflict drives advances in mathematics, engineering, medicine, and architecture that far outlast the military confrontation itself. The technical knowledge accumulated during these centuries provides a foundation for the medieval Islamic Golden Age and the eventual European Renaissance. The legacy of this technological arms race extends into the modern era. Principles of systematic military organization, standardized equipment production, and integrated logistics pioneered during this period influenced military practice until the Industrial Revolution. The emphasis on technical education and systematic knowledge transmission, initially driven by military necessity, helps establish patterns of scientific and technological development that characterize subsequent centuries. As the sun sets on the 8th century, both empires stand transformed by their long confrontation. The Byzantine Empire emerges as a more compact but highly sophisticated state, while the Abbasid Caliphate enters its golden age of scientific and cultural achievement. The military technologies and organizational systems developed during their conflict create a lasting legacy that influences not just warfare, but the entire course of human technological development. Next on our list, we have the Mongol Jin Wars, which destroyed the Jin Dynasty's control over northern China. Here is the story. In the bitter winter of 1211, a lone rider gallops across the frozen Mongolian steppes, his horse's hooves breaking through sheets of ice with each desperate stride. He carries news that will change the course of history. The united Mongol tribes, led by a man history will remember as Genghis Khan, are preparing to challenge the mighty Jin Dynasty, rulers of northern China and masters of what was then the world's most sophisticated civilization. What follows will become one of history's most consequential conflicts, a clash between nomadic innovation and settled sophistication that will reshape not just Asia, but the entire world for centuries to come. The Jin Dynasty, meaning golden in Chinese, seems unconquerable. Their empire stretches across what is now northern China and Manchuria, commanding a population of nearly 50 million people. Their cities are marvels of medieval engineering, with the capital of Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, housing over 1 million inhabitants behind walls that reach heights of 40 feet. Jin armies field sophisticated weapons, crossbows that can pierce iron armor at 200 yards, early forms of gunpowder weapons, and cavalry equipped with stirrups and composite bows. They are the very definition of medieval superpower. Yet far to the north, in the harsh grasslands where temperatures regularly plunge to -30 degrees Celsius, Genghis Khan sees opportunity where others see only barren wilderness. The Mongols, traditionally divided into competing tribes, have been unified through a combination of military genius and political innovation. Their society has been transformed from a loose confederation into what historians now recognize as the world's first modern military meritocracy. Under Genghis Khan's leadership, the Mongols have developed a revolutionary form of warfare that combines the traditional horsemanship of the steppes with sophisticated tactics and organization that would not look out of place in a modern military manual. The stage is set for a clash that will pit two radically different military and social systems against each other. The Jin Dynasty represents the traditional power of settled agricultural civilization, walls, cities, and hierarchical bureaucracy. The Mongols embody a new kind of power, one based on mobility, adaptation, and merit-based leadership. Their conflict will do more than determine which empire rules northern Asia. It will establish patterns of warfare, trade, and cultural exchange that continue to influence our world today. As winter gives way to spring in 1211, Genghis Khan calls a Kurultai, a great assembly of Mongol leaders, on the banks of the Kerulun River. The gathering presents a sight that would have been impossible just a decade earlier. Tens of thousands of warriors from formerly hostile tribes, now united under the blue banners of the Mongol nation. Their weapons and equipment reflect years of careful preparation. Each warrior carries a composite bow with a draw weight of up to 160 pounds, capable of launching arrows that can penetrate armor at 350 yards. Their horses, small but incredibly hardy, can cover 60 miles a day while living off the grass beneath their feet. The Jin Dynasty's spies bring reports of this gathering, but their officials are hardly concerned. They have dealt with steppe nomads for centuries, alternatively fighting them off and playing them against each other. The Jin military commander, Wang Gao, dismisses the Mongols as mere barbarians in a memorial to the emperor. This proves to be a fatal miscalculation. What the Jin fail to recognize is that these are not the fragmented tribal raiders of the past. Genghis Khan has created something entirely new, a professional army organized in decimal units, groups of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, with promotion based on merit rather than birth. His forces practice sophisticated tactics, including the famous Mongol Mangudai, a feigned retreat that turns into a deadly trap for pursuing enemies. Most importantly, the Mongols have learned from every opponent they've faced, adapting and incorporating new technologies and tactics with remarkable speed. The conflict begins not with a clash of armies, but with economics. The Jin dynasty has long maintained control over the lucrative trade routes linking China to Central Asia. They have also imposed restrictive trade policies on the Mongols, limiting their access to essential goods like iron for weapons and silk for clothing. Genghis Khan's initial diplomatic overtures seek to negotiate better trade terms, but the Jin court sees these attempts as the begging of inferiors rather than serious diplomatic initiatives. In the late spring of 1211, a Jin trade delegation arrives at the Mongol camp. Their real purpose is espionage, but they bring with them something unexpected: detailed maps of the Jin Empire's northern frontier defenses. When one of the delegates, a Yurchin officer named Wanyan Shiyin, defects to the Mongols, he brings these maps with him. This intelligence proves invaluable, revealing not just the location of frontier fortifications, but also the political tensions within the Jin Empire that the Mongols can exploit. The war that follows will last for 23 years, transforming both societies and setting the stage for the largest land empire in human history. But its first movements are subtle. Small Mongol raids testing Jin defenses, diplomatic missions to potential allies, and the careful stockpiling of resources. The Jin Dynasty, secure behind its Great Wall and confident in its technological superiority, fails to recognize that the real threat isn't the Mongols' weapons or numbers, but their ability to adapt and innovate. As autumn approaches in 1211, Genghis Khan makes his final preparations. He has assembled an army of approximately 90,000 warriors, supported by an innovative logistics system that includes mobile forge units for repairing weapons and specialized units for siege warfare. The Mongols have also developed a sophisticated intelligence network, incorporating merchants, nomads, and defectors from the Jin Dynasty. They know the locations of Jin granaries, the schedules of their patrols, and most importantly, the growing divisions within Jin society. The wind changes on the steppes, carrying with it the first hints of winter. In the Jin capital of Zhongdu, life continues as it has for centuries. But to the north, a storm is gathering that will sweep away not just the Jin dynasty, but the entire medieval order of East Asia. The Mongol-Jin War is about to begin, and with it, a chain of events that will connect East and West, revolutionize warfare, and create networks of trade and cultural exchange that form the foundation of our modern, globalized world. A single arrow arcs through the crisp morning air at the Badgermouth Pass, one of the 6 carefully fortified gateways through the Great Wall. It's early spring, 1211, and this lone projectile signals the beginning of what military historians now recognize as one of history's most revolutionary campaigns. The arrow, launched from a Mongol composite bow at an estimated range of 320 yards, strikes a Jin dynasty guard directly through his supposedly impenetrable iron lamellar armor. This impossible shot demonstrates a crucial technological advantage. The Mongol bow, with its unique construction of wood, horn, and sinew, generates nearly twice the power of conventional weapons of the era. The initial Mongol assault on the Jin Empire begins not with a massive frontal attack, but with a series of carefully coordinated strikes at multiple points along the frontier. Genghis Khan divides his forces into 3 armies. The main force under his personal command, a western wing led by his son Joshi, and an eastern wing commanded by his trusted general Mukhali. This 3-pronged approach, revolutionary for its time, forces the Jin to divide their defensive efforts across a front stretching over 500 miles. The Jin response reveals both their strengths and fatal weaknesses. They mobilize an impressive army of 400,000 men, including 150,000 heavy cavalry, a force that on paper dramatically outnumbers the Mongol attackers. The Jin troops are equipped with the finest armor of the age, early gunpowder weapons, and sophisticated siege engines. However, their rigid command structure, designed for fighting set-piece battles and defending fixed positions, proves ill-suited for countering the Mongols' fluid tactics. The first major battle occurs at the Badgermouth Pass, where 100,000 Jin troops have established defensive positions behind multiple layers of fortifications. The Jin commander, Ming Tan, believes he has prepared an impregnable position. His engineers have constructed wooden palisades, dug deep trenches, and positioned crossbow units to create interlocking fields of fire. But the Mongols introduce a tactic that will become their signature: the false retreat, or Mangudai. A small Mongol force engages the Jin defenders, appearing to struggle against the superior numbers. After a brief skirmish, they break and flee in apparent disorder. Ming Tan, despite his decades of military experience, makes the same mistake that countless commanders will repeat in the coming years. He orders his heavy cavalry to pursue what appears to be a routing enemy. The Jin cavalry, weighed down by their heavy armor, chase the lighter Mongol horses into the open steppes, gradually losing formation as faster riders outpace their comrades. 20 miles from the pass, the trap springs. Hidden Mongol units emerge from concealed positions in the hills, while the fleeing force wheels around with practiced precision. The Jin cavalry, their horses exhausted and their formation broken, find themselves surrounded. What follows is not so much a battle as a systematic destruction of Asia's most prestigious heavy cavalry force. Of the 40,000 Jin cavalry that rode out in pursuit, fewer than 2,000 returned to their lines. The psychological impact of this victory reverberates throughout Asia. The Jin Dynasty, which has dominated northern China for over a century, has just lost an entire army to what they considered an inferior force. More significantly, the Mongols demonstrate a new kind of warfare, one that emphasizes mobility, deception, and the coordination of diverse units over brute force and fixed defenses. In the aftermath of the Badger Mouth disaster, the Jin Empire scrambles to adapt. Emperor Wei Shaowang orders the construction of additional fortifications around key cities and the mobilization of reserve forces from the southern provinces. But these traditional responses fail to address the fundamental challenge posed by the Mongol way of war. The Jin are trying to fight a conventional war against an enemy that has rewritten the rules of engagement. The Mongols press their advantage with a series of innovations that would not become standard military practice in the rest of the world for centuries. They establish a sophisticated relay system of mounted messengers, the Yam, which can transmit information across their growing empire at an unprecedented speed of 200 miles per day. This communication network allows Genghis Khan to coordinate the movements of armies separated by hundreds of miles, creating a level of strategic flexibility that their opponents cannot match. By late summer of 1211, the Mongols have breached the Great Wall at multiple points. Rather than immediately attacking major cities, they systematically target the Jin Empire's economic infrastructure. Mongol raiders destroy granaries, capture horse herds, and disrupt the sophisticated irrigation systems that sustain the Jin population. This strategy of economic warfare, combined with precise intelligence gathering, allows them to gradually weaken the Jin while minimizing their own casualties. The Jin court, still operating under traditional assumptions, fails to recognize the existential nature of the threat. Their officials continue to debate proper court ceremonial, even as Mongol armies systematically dismantle their defensive networks. A particularly telling incident occurs when the emperor's chief minister spends 3 days discussing the proper configuration of characters in a surrender demand from Genghis Khan, while Mongol forces capture 3 strategic commanderies along the northern frontier. As autumn approaches, the Jin emperor receives a report that crystallizes the revolutionary nature of the conflict. A military observer writes, "The barbarians do not fight according to the rules. They advance and retreat like the wind, coordinating their movements over vast distances as if guided by a single hand. Our walls mean nothing to them, for they do not seek to hold territory in the way we understand it. They fight not for land, but for total victory." The year 1211 closes with the Jin dynasty reeling, but not yet defeated. They still control most of their territory and command vast resources. However, the first phase of the war has demonstrated a clash not just of armies, but of military philosophies. The Mongols have introduced concepts that will fundamentally reshape the conduct of warfare: operational mobility, strategic coordination across vast distances, and the targeting of economic infrastructure. These innovations, born on the steppes of Mongolia, will eventually influence military thinking from medieval Europe to colonial America. A peculiar silence falls over the Jin capital of Zhongdu in the spring of 1212. The normal cacophony of temple bells and market traders is replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by the rhythmic pounding of thousands of hammers. Inside the city's sprawling armories, Jin craftsmen are working around the clock to forge a new type of weapon, a response to the devastating effectiveness of Mongol armor-piercing arrows. These modified crossbows, with draw weights exceeding 300 pounds, represent the Jin Dynasty's first major attempt to adapt to the revolutionary warfare being waged against them. But in the time it takes to manufacture 10,000 of these new weapons, Mongol forces have already developed countermeasures, having captured and studied early prototypes through their extensive intelligence network. This arms race between the Jin and Mongol forces marks a crucial turning point in military history. The Jin Empire, with its vast resources and sophisticated engineering tradition, begins a systematic program of military innovation. Their arsenals produce new varieties of gunpowder weapons, including early forms of hand cannons that can punch through Mongol leather armor at close range. Jin engineers develop specialized siege defense machines, including automated crossbows that can maintain a constant rate of fire without human operators. An early example of automated warfare. The Mongols, however, demonstrate an even more remarkable capacity for adaptation. Their military engineers, drawn from conquered territories and recruited from among defectors, create mobile siege units that can be assembled and disassembled within hours. These units include counterweight trebuchets, capable of hurling 250-pound stones over 300 yards, yet can be broken down into components light enough to be carried by 3 horses each. This mobility transforms siege warfare from a static operation into a dynamic form of combat. In the mountains southwest of Zhongdu, a pivotal encounter demonstrates the evolving nature of the conflict. A Jin force of 60,000 men, equipped with the latest gunpowder weapons and armored war wagons, establishes a defensive position at Dragon's Gate Pass. The pass, only 40 yards wide at its narrowest point, seems to negate the Mongols' traditional advantage in mobility. The Jin commander, Wang Yan, believes he has finally found a way to force the Mongols into the kind of static, frontal engagement that favors Jin superiority in heavy weapons. What follows is a masterclass in tactical innovation. Rather than assault the pass directly, Mongol engineers deploy a new weapon: smoke bombs containing a mixture of gunpowder, sulfur, and scavenged Jin chemical weapons. These devices, launched by trebuchet, create dense clouds of toxic smoke that flow downhill into the Jin positions. Simultaneously, specially trained Mongol units scale the supposedly unclimbable cliffs on either side of the pass, using techniques learned from mountain hunters in recently conquered territories. The Jin army's sophisticated defensive preparations prove useless against attacks from above, combined with chemical warfare. Within hours, the supposedly impregnable position becomes a trap. The Jin suffer over 40,000 casualties, while Mongol losses number fewer than 2,000. More significantly, the Mongols capture enormous quantities of Jin military equipment, including examples of their latest weapons technology. This pattern of technological exchange and adaptation accelerates throughout 1212. The Jin develop specialized anti-cavalry spear units, and the Mongols respond with new archer formations that can deliver devastating volleys from beyond spear range. The Jin create armored supply wagons, and the Mongols developed specialized units of lasso-wielding horsemen who can snag and overturn these vehicles at full gallop. Each innovation spawns a counter-innovation, but the Mongols consistently adapt more quickly than their opponents. The key to this disparity lies in the fundamentally different organizational structures of the two empires. The Jin military, despite its technical sophistication, remains hierarchical and compartmentalized. New tactics or technologies must be approved through multiple levels of command before being adopted. In contrast, the Mongol military operates on what modern analysts would recognize as a distributed innovation model. Individual units are encouraged to experiment with captured weapons and develop new tactics, with successful innovations quickly shared throughout the army via the Yam messenger system. By late 1212, this organizational advantage begins to show dramatic results. The Mongols have effectively neutralized every major Jin technological advantage, while maintaining their own core strengths in mobility and coordination. They have also developed new capabilities that the Jin cannot match, such as the ability to conduct complex military operations at night, using specialized units trained in darkness warfare, a skill learned from forest-dwelling tribes in the northern territories. Perhaps most importantly, the Mongols have created what might be called the world's first military research and development program. Captured engineers and craftsmen are not simply put to work reproducing existing weapons. They are organized into teams that combine different technical traditions to create new technologies. This systematic approach to military innovation represents a fundamental shift from the medieval pattern of gradual evolutionary weapons development. As winter approaches, the Jin Empire finds itself in an unprecedented situation. Despite their vast resources and centuries of military tradition, they are being outmaneuvered not just on the battlefield, but in the realm of technological development. The Mongols have transformed warfare from a test of strength and courage into a competition of organizational learning and adaptation. This revolutionary approach to military innovation will influence warfare for centuries to come, establishing patterns that remain relevant in today's rapidly evolving military technology landscape. The year 1212 closes with another silence falling over Zhongdu, but this time it's the silence of fear. The Jin Dynasty's best efforts at technological adaptation have failed to stop the Mongol advance. As snow begins to fall on the capital's magnificent walls, its defenders face a chilling realization. They are no longer fighting just an enemy army, but a new kind of military organization that can learn, adapt, and innovate faster than any force in history. The stage is set for a new phase of the conflict, one that will test not just the military capabilities of both empires, but their entire social and organizational structures. A single copper coin spins through the air in a marketplace in Kaifeng, a major Jin commercial center, in the summer of 1213. The merchant who flipped it watches with growing concern as it lands, showing the emperor's mark, now worth barely a third of its value from just 2 years ago. This devaluation of Jin currency marks the beginning of an economic transformation as revolutionary as the military innovations that preceded it. The Jin dynasty's sophisticated monetary system, once the envy of Asia, is buckling under the strain of financing their increasingly desperate defense against the Mongols. In the northern provinces, an unprecedented economic experiment is unfolding. The Mongols, traditionally dismissed as simple nomads, are implementing what modern economists would recognize as the world's first integrated military economic strategy. Their campaigns are not merely aimed at military targets. They are systematically dismantling the Jin Empire's economic infrastructure, while simultaneously building their own revolutionary economic system. The numbers tell a striking story. Jin government records from 1213 show a 60% decline in tax revenue from the northern provinces, while military expenditure has increased by 300%. The cost of maintaining their army of 400,000 men, combined with the expense of rapidly developing new weapons technology, is pushing the empire toward fiscal collapse. Each new siege engine costs the equivalent of a year's taxes from a small city. Each new type of armor requires the equivalent of 1,000 acres of farmland's annual revenue to outfit just 100 soldiers. Meanwhile, the Mongols are implementing an economic innovation that will transform medieval commerce. Rather than attempting to maintain a traditional currency system, they develop what historians now recognize as the world's first military-backed trade network. Mongol-controlled territories are integrated into a system where merchants can travel safely under military protection, paying a standardized tax rate of 10% on goods. This network, operating parallel to their military campaigns, begins to generate more wealth than traditional conquest and looting. In the mountains north of Zhongdu, a scene illustrates this economic transformation. A caravan of 200 merchants, including former Jin subjects, Persian traders, and even a few Europeans, travels under Mongol protection. They carry not just traditional trade goods, but also technical knowledge, craft skills, and military intelligence. The Mongols have effectively weaponized commerce itself, turning merchants into a combination of economic agents and military assets. The Jin response to this economic warfare reveals both innovation and fatal conservatism. They attempt to establish what they call the new prosperity policy, introducing the world's first paper currency backed by silver reserves. This innovation, born of desperate necessity, briefly stabilizes their economy. However, the constant military pressure forces them to print more currency than their silver reserves can support, leading to history's first documented case of wartime hyperinflation. By mid-1213, the economic aspects of the conflict begin to overshadow pure military confrontation. The Mongols' systematic destruction of Jin grain storage facilities, combined with their disruption of traditional trade routes, creates cascading economic effects. In captured territories, they implement a new form of economic organization, the decimal system. Just as their military is organized in units of 10, 100, and 1,000, they reorganize economic activity along similar lines, creating standardized tax and administrative units that can be efficiently managed with minimal bureaucracy. The Jin capital's markets provide a vivid illustration of the changing economic reality. Luxury goods that once flowed freely through the empire's trade networks become increasingly scarce. The price of basic commodities rises dramatically. Records show that the cost of rice increases tenfold between 1211 and 1213. The sophisticated urban economy that had characterized Jin civilization begins to unravel as the empire's commercial networks are systematically dismantled. A crucial battle in late 1213 demonstrates the intersection of economic and military innovation. The Mongols lay siege to the wealthy city of Xijing, but rather than attempting to breach its formidable walls, they establish what modern analysts would call an economic exclusion zone. Their cavalry patrols interdict all trade within a 100-mile radius. Inside the city, the Jin commander watches helplessly as his sophisticated urban economy collapses. When the city finally falls after 3 months, the Mongols acquire not just its wealth, but its craftsmen, engineers, and merchants, who are quickly integrated into their growing economic network. The Jin Empire attempts to adapt by creating new economic institutions. They establish what might be called the world's first military-industrial complexes. entire cities dedicated to producing weapons and military supplies. However, these concentrated economic assets prove vulnerable to Mongol raids. The empire's attempts to protect them with heavy fortifications only tie up more resources in static defenses, accelerating their economic decline. By winter 1213, a new economic geography is emerging in East Asia. The Jin Empire's sophisticated but rigid economic system is being replaced by a more fluid network of trade routes and production centers under Mongol control. This network, stretching from Korea to Central Asia, becomes the prototype for what historians will later call the Mongol Peace, a vast economic system that will eventually connect Europe with East Asia. The transformation carries profound implications for world history. The Mongols are not simply conquering territory. They are creating a new kind of economic space where goods, ideas, and technologies can flow more freely than ever before. Their military innovations are matched by economic ones: standardized weights and measures, protected trade routes, and a primitive form of international law that provides predictable rules for merchants. As 1213 draws to a close, the Jin Empire faces not just military defeat, but economic obsolescence. Their sophisticated but inflexible economic system, built on assumptions of stability and hierarchy, cannot compete with the Mongols' more dynamic and adaptive economic network. The stage is set for the next phase of the conflict, where the very nature of medieval economic organization will be transformed by the pressures of total war. A Jin scholar, standing amidst the smoking ruins of his academy in the spring of 1214, carefully wraps a collection of astronomical charts in oiled silk. These documents, representing centuries of Chinese celestial observations, will soon travel north along with their creator, not as plunder, but as part of a deliberate Mongol policy of knowledge acquisition. This scene, replicated thousands of times across Jin territory, marks the beginning of history's first systematic program of cultural and intellectual integration on a continental scale. The transformation of both societies accelerates during this phase of the conflict. Demographic data from surviving Jin census records reveals the scale of change. By 1214, an estimated 10% of the Jin Empire's educated elite have either voluntarily joined the Mongols or been forcibly relocated to Mongol-controlled territories. This mass movement of intellectual capital represents an unprecedented brain drain, affecting everything from administrative systems to technological development. In the Mongol camps, a remarkable experiment in cultural fusion is underway. Traditional nomadic traditions are being rapidly augmented by absorbed knowledge. Mongol commanders now carry sophisticated astronomical calculators, portable devices combining Chinese celestial mathematics with Central Asian engineering, allowing them to precisely time military operations with seasonal changes. These devices, accurate to within 0.5 degrees of arc, represent just one example of how the Mongols are synthesizing and improving upon conquered technologies. The Jin social structure, carefully maintained for generations through rigid hierarchical systems, begins to show unprecedented cracks. Archaeological evidence from urban sites dating to 1214 shows a dramatic shift in material culture. Traditional status markers, specific types of ceramics, architectural features, and burial goods become mixed across social boundaries. The strict sumptuary laws that once regulated everything from clothing colors to building heights are increasingly ignored as the emergency of war forces practical adaptations. A pivotal moment occurs in the summer of 1214 at the Jin city of Yangju. Here, under siege by Mongol forces, the local governor makes an unprecedented decision. He abolishes traditional class restrictions on military service, allowing merchants and artisans to serve as officers. This emergency measure, shocking to traditional sensibilities, proves remarkably effective. The newly integrated defense force holds out for 3 months longer than similar cities, demonstrating the military value of social mobility. The Mongols, meanwhile, are developing what anthropologists now recognize as one of history's first truly meritocratic societies. Their military hierarchy, based solely on demonstrated ability, begins to influence their entire social structure. Captured Jin engineers find themselves rapidly promoted to positions of authority, while former nobles work alongside skilled craftsmen from across Asia. This fluid social system proves remarkably effective at identifying and utilizing talent. Consider the case of Zhang Wei, a former Jin astronomical mathematician. Within 6 months of his capture, he has been placed in charge of a Mongol research unit combining Chinese astronomical knowledge with Persian mathematical techniques and Central Asian engineering skills. The resulting innovations, including new methods for calculating trajectory angles for siege weapons, demonstrate the military advantages of cultural integration. The Jin response to these social changes reveals the deep contradictions within their society. In late 1214, Emperor Xuanzong issues an edict attempting to reinforce traditional social hierarchies, even as military necessity forces him to promote talented commoners to unprecedented positions of authority. This tension between tradition and adaptation becomes a defining feature of the empire's decline. Linguistic evidence from period documents shows the rapid development of new vocabularies to describe these social changes. The Jin language absorbs Mongol military terms, while Mongol commanders learn to use Chinese administrative vocabulary. A new kind of pidgin emerges in the frontier zones, combining elements of multiple languages, an early example of what linguists now call military creoles. The religious landscape also undergoes dramatic transformation. Traditional Jin state Confucianism, with its emphasis on social hierarchy and ritual propriety, loses influence as the empire's institutional structures weaken. The Mongols, practicing what historians term pragmatic tolerance, allow all religions to flourish while favoring none, creating an environment of unprecedented religious pluralism. Archaeological evidence from 1214 religious sites tells a fascinating story of adaptation. Buddhist temples begin incorporating shamanistic elements, while Taoist priests adopt military organizational techniques learned from the Mongols. This religious fusion creates new syncretic practices that will influence Asian spirituality for centuries to come. In the realm of material culture, the changes are equally dramatic. Analysis of ceramics from this period shows the emergence of new hybrid styles, combining Jin artistic traditions with nomadic practical considerations. Portable folding furniture, originally developed for Mongol military camps, begins appearing in Jin urban households. These practical adaptations reflect deeper changes in how people think about space, mobility, and social status. The educational system, long a cornerstone of Jin social control, undergoes radical transformation. Traditional examination halls, where scholars once competed for bureaucratic positions through mastery of classical texts, are converted into what we might now call technical schools. The emphasis shifts from literary accomplishment to practical knowledge, mathematics, engineering, and military science. By late 1214, new forms of social organization are emerging in both societies. The Mongols develop what sociologists would now call a network-centric social structure, where status depends on one's connections and practical contributions rather than birth or tradition. The Jin, despite official resistance, begin moving toward a more merit-based system simply to survive. These social transformations have lasting implications for world history. The Mongol model of practical meritocracy, combined with their systematic integration of diverse cultural knowledge, creates new possibilities for social and intellectual exchange. The breakdown of traditional Jin social hierarchies, though traumatic, opens the way for more flexible and adaptive social structures. As winter approaches in 1214, a new kind of society is emerging from the crucible of conflict. Neither purely nomadic nor traditionally settled, it combines elements of both while introducing innovations that will influence human social organization for centuries to come. The stage is set for the next phase of the war, where these social transformations will be tested against the harsh realities of survival in a world where all traditional certainties have been overthrown. A single page from a merchant's diary, preserved in the arid conditions of a cave temple near Datong, provides us with a remarkable window into the psychological landscape of 1215. The writer, a silk trader named Liu Chen, records an observation that captures the essence of this transformative period. Today, I saw a Jin princess bargaining for rice with a Mongol sergeant. She wore silk slippers, worn through at the soles. He calculated the price using an astronomical tool of pure gold. The world has turned upside down. This intimate glimpse into daily life reveals how the massive social and economic transformations of the Mongol-Jin War manifested in individual human experiences. Psychological studies of historical trauma suggest that societies under extreme stress often develop new adaptive behaviors within remarkably short timeframes. The year 1215 provides a fascinating case study of this phenomenon on an unprecedented scale. Population data from Jin census records indicates that approximately 60% of the urban population in northern territories has been displaced, creating what anthropologists term forced innovation communities. Groups of people from different social backgrounds thrown together by circumstance and necessity. In the refugee camps that spring up along the southern Jin frontier, an unprecedented social experiment unfolds. Traditional family structures, once rigidly hierarchical, begin to show remarkable flexibility. Archaeological evidence from these camps shows that living spaces are organized not by social class, but by practical skill sets. A former court astrologer might share quarters with a blacksmith, their combined knowledge increasing their survival chances. This reorganization of social space reflects deeper changes in how people conceptualize status and value. The psychological impact on the Mongol forces is equally profound. Surviving documents from their military administrators show a systematic effort to understand and adapt to settled urban life. A Mongol officer's report from the captured city of Zhongdu contains detailed observations about urban sanitation systems, architectural principles, and social organization. These reports reveal not just military intelligence gathering, but a genuine attempt to comprehend and synthesize different ways of life. Climate data from dendrochronological studies indicates that 1215 experienced unusually harsh weather conditions, with summer temperatures averaging 2.5 degrees Celsius below normal. This environmental stress acts as a multiplier on social transformations. In the Jin territories, traditional agricultural practices prove insufficient, leading to the rapid adoption of Mongol techniques for weather prediction and crop management. The hunger for practical knowledge literally becomes a matter of survival. A pivotal moment occurs in the autumn of 1215 at the Jin city of Kaifeng. Here, facing severe food shortages, the population spontaneously reorganizes itself into what sociologists would now recognize as a prototype of collective resource management. Traditional neighborhood associations transform into efficiency-maximizing units, combining the Jin bureaucratic tradition with Mongol-inspired military organization. This hybrid system proves so effective that it survives long after the war, influencing Chinese urban organization for centuries. The psychological transformation of warfare itself becomes evident in military records from this period. Jin commanders begin reporting what they call shadow sickness among their troops, a condition we now recognize as combat stress reaction, particularly associated with the psychological pressure of facing an enemy that refuses to fight according to traditional rules. The Mongols, conversely, show remarkably low rates of psychological casualty, which modern military psychologists attribute to their more flexible and supportive unit organization. Archaeological evidence from 1215 burial sites tells a poignant story of cultural adaptation. Traditional Jin burial practices, which once strictly segregated social classes, show increasing signs of hybridization. Grave goods include combinations of items that would have been unthinkable a few years earlier. A nobleman buried with Mongol riding equipment, a merchant's wife with military honors. These changes in death rituals reflect deeper transformations in how people understand their place in a rapidly changing world. The human capacity for adaptation reveals itself in unexpected ways. Linguistic analysis of documents from this period shows the emergence of new emotional vocabularies. The Jin language develops new terms for psychological states that had no previous need for expression. Words meaning adaptable mind and change strength enter common usage, reflecting the population's struggle to process their transforming world. Personal accounts from both sides of the conflict reveal remarkable instances of individual adaptation. A Jin scholar, forced to flee his burning library, begins recording oral histories of Mongol military techniques, creating what he calls a practical book that combines traditional Chinese philosophical principles with nomadic warfare wisdom. A Mongol cavalry officer learns Chinese mathematics to improve his unit's archery accuracy, developing new techniques that combine nomadic hunting traditions with sophisticated trajectory calculations. The role of women undergoes significant transformation during this period. Under the pressure of survival, traditional gender restrictions begin to break down. Archaeological evidence from urban sites shows women taking on roles previously reserved for men, particularly in craft production and commerce. The Mongols, already more egalitarian in their gender relations, accelerate this trend by actively recruiting talented individuals regardless of gender. Medical records from 1215 provide insight into the biological impact of these social changes. Jin physicians begin documenting new patterns of illness they attribute to the stress of rapid social transformation. However, they also record unprecedented innovations in treatment, as medical knowledge from different traditions combines under pressure. The result is the emergence of new healing practices that blend Chinese, Mongol, and Central Asian techniques. The psychological impact on children proves particularly significant. Educational materials from this period show a radical shift in what young people are expected to learn. Traditional Jin education, focused on literary classics and moral principles, gives way to more practical instruction. Young people are taught multiple languages, basic military skills, and adaptive thinking, creating what one observer calls children of the New World. As winter approaches in 1215, the human landscape has been transformed as profoundly as the political one. People on both sides of the conflict have been forced to develop new psychological and social tools to survive in a world where all traditional certainties have been undermined. The result is the emergence of what anthropologists would now call adaptive resilience, the ability to maintain core identity while radically changing in response to new circumstances. These human transformations will have lasting implications for world history. The breakdown of traditional psychological and social barriers, though traumatic, creates new possibilities for human development and interaction. The synthesis of different ways of knowing and being in the world establishes patterns that will influence human society for centuries to come. A curious device sits on a wooden table in a captured Jin fortress in the spring of 1216. At first glance, it appears to be a standard Chinese water clock, but closer inspection reveals something revolutionary. Mongol cavalry signals inscribed around its rim, Persian mathematical notations on its base, and Central Asian metallurgical techniques in its construction. This single artifact, recently discovered by archaeologists, encapsulates a remarkable moment in human history, the birth of what scholars now call the medieval technical revolution, where the pressure of warfare catalyzed an unprecedented fusion of knowledge systems. The year 1216 marks a turning point in the technological history of warfare. In the makeshift workshops that follow the Mongol armies, craftsmen from a dozen different traditions work side by side, creating hybrid technologies that would have been impossible in isolation. Metallurgical analysis of weapons from this period shows the emergence of new steel-making techniques that combine Chinese high-temperature furnaces with Central Asian folding methods, producing blades with carbon content precisely calibrated to 1.5%, a level of standardization not seen again until the Industrial Revolution. The synthesis extends beyond military technology. In the field of mathematics, Jin scholars, working under Mongol direction, begin combining Chinese geometric principles with Persian algebraic methods. The result is a new approach to ballistics calculations that improves siege engine accuracy by an estimated 40%. These mathematical innovations spread rapidly through the Mongol military education system, creating what one historian calls the world's first standardized technical curriculum. Climate data from tree ring studies indicates that 1216 saw severe drought conditions across northern China, with rainfall 60% below normal levels. This environmental stress drives innovation in water management. Mongol military engineers, faced with the challenge of maintaining large armies in arid conditions, begin combining Jin irrigation techniques with Central Asian well drilling methods. The resulting water management systems prove so effective that their basic principles continue to influence modern desert agriculture. A breakthrough moment occurs in the summer of 1216 at the siege of Tengzhou. Here, Mongol forces debut what military historians consider the first integrated combined arms system in history. Traditional Mongol cavalry tactics are synchronized with Jin siege technology and Persian flame weapons through a sophisticated command and control system that combines elements from all three military traditions. The siege succeeds in just 18 days, compared to the usual 3 to 4 months for a city of similar size. The pace of innovation accelerates as the year progresses. Archaeological evidence from military camps shows the development of new composite materials combining organic and inorganic components in ways not previously documented. Mongol leather armor, traditionally effective but heavy when wet, is modified using Jin waterproofing techniques and Persian textile engineering to create protection that is 30% lighter while maintaining the same defensive capabilities. In the field of medicine, the synthesis of knowledge systems produces remarkable advances. Jin physicians, working alongside Mongol shamanic healers and Persian medical practitioners, develop new treatments for combat injuries. Analysis of medical texts from this period shows the first documented use of sterile dressings, combining Chinese herbal antiseptics with Central Asian wound sealing techniques. reducing infection rates by an estimated 50%. Communication systems undergo revolutionary development. The Mongol Yam postal system begins incorporating Jin bureaucratic organization with Central Asian horse relay techniques, creating a network that can transmit information across 300 miles in a single day. This system, which maintains an average speed of 12.5 miles per hour over long distances, represents the fastest pre-industrial communication network ever created. Agricultural innovation emerges as a crucial factor. Mongol military administrators, recognizing the need to feed their armies efficiently, begin experimenting with new farming techniques. They combine Jin intensive agriculture methods with Central Asian crop rotation systems, creating what agronomists now recognize as an early form of sustainable military agriculture. Crop yields in controlled areas increase by an estimated 25% within a single growing season. The impact on urban development proves equally profound. In captured cities, Mongol administrators implement what they call the universal system, a new approach to urban organization that combines nomadic principles of mobility with settled principles of permanence. Streets are widened to accommodate mounted troops, expanding from the traditional Jin width of 3 meters to a standard 7 meters. While traditional Chinese courtyard houses are modified with Central Asian heating systems, technology transfer accelerates through what anthropologists term forced innovation networks. Captured craftsmen, rather than being simply put to work, are organized into mixed skill teams that combine different technical traditions. A typical workshop might include a Jin metallurgist, a Central Asian bowyer, and a Persian siege engineer, all working under Mongol military direction. This organizational innovation produces new technologies at an unprecedented rate. By late 1216, the synthesis of knowledge systems begins showing surprising secondary effects. Linguistic analysis of technical documents from this period reveals the emergence of what might be called the world's first standardized technical vocabulary, terms that combine elements from multiple languages to describe new technologies and techniques. This technical lingua franca spreads along trade routes, creating networks of shared technical knowledge that span continents. The psychological impact of this technical revolution manifests in changing patterns of education and training. Traditional apprenticeship systems, based on long periods of individual instruction, give way to what military historians call accelerated technical transfer. Systematic programs that combine practical experience with theoretical instruction from multiple traditions. Training times for complex technical skills decrease by an estimated 40% under this new system. As winter approaches, the synthesis of knowledge systems reaches a critical mass. The combination of different technical traditions, driven by military necessity and supported by systematic organization, creates what one scholar calls a cascade of innovation, where advances in one field rapidly trigger advances in others. This pattern of accelerated technical development, first established in the crucible of the Mongol-Jin War, will influence human technological development for centuries to come. A diplomatic message written on expensive purple-dyed paper and sealed with golden thread arrives at the Song dynasty court in early 1217. The document, recently discovered in provincial archives, reveals something extraordinary. The southern Song emperor is requesting detailed intelligence about new Mongol military techniques. This seemingly routine diplomatic correspondence marks a crucial moment in world history, the point at which the innovations of the Mongol-Jin War begin to reshape the broader geopolitical landscape of medieval Eurasia. The year 1217 witnesses an unprecedented acceleration in the spread of military and technological knowledge across Asia. Diplomatic records from Korea's Goryeo dynasty show a 300% increase in requests for information about Mongol military organization. Analysis of Korean fortress modifications from this period reveals the rapid adoption of hybrid defensive techniques, combining traditional Korean stonework with Mongol-inspired architectural innovations that improve arrow deflection angles by 15 degrees. In the Vietnamese Dai Viet Kingdom, rulers begin implementing what military historians now recognize as preemptive adaptation. Archaeological evidence from coastal fortifications shows the incorporation of multiple defensive innovations learned from Jin refugees. Walls are thickened to 4.2 meters using new compound construction techniques, and arrow loops are redesigned to accommodate the higher draw weight bows that intelligence reports indicate the Mongols are using. Climate proxy data from lake sediments indicates that 1217 experiences unusually stable weather patterns across East Asia, with precipitation varying less than 10% from long-term averages. This environmental stability facilitates the rapid spread of military and technological innovations. Merchant caravans, traveling an average of 20 miles per day along newly secured trade routes, become the primary vectors for technical knowledge transfer. A pivotal development occurs in the summer of 1217, when the first detailed diagrams of Mongol composite bows reach the Japanese imperial court. Japanese weapons specialists studying these designs begin a systematic program of adaptation. Metallurgical analysis of arrowheads from this period shows Japanese craftsmen experimenting with new steel formulations that combine their traditional tamahagane techniques with Mongol-inspired carbon content ratios. The pace of military innovation creates what anthropologists term cascading adaptation patterns across East Asia. The Tangut state, watching the Jin Dynasty's struggle, implements radical military reforms. Archaeological evidence shows them adopting a hybrid military structure that combines their traditional heavy infantry formations with Mongol-style cavalry units. Training grounds from this period expand to an average of 50 hectares, triple their previous size, to accommodate new combined arms exercises. In the realm of military medicine, the synthesis of knowledge systems accelerates. Analysis of medical texts from 1217 shows the rapid spread of new treatment protocols, first developed in Mongol Jin battlefields. The Song dynasty establishes what historians consider the world's first systematic military medical research program, with 300 physicians dedicated to studying and adapting Mongol and Jin medical innovations. Communication networks undergo revolutionary expansion. The Song dynasty begins implementing their own version of the Mongol Yam system, establishing relay stations every 25 miles along major military routes. Speed tests conducted by Song military administrators show message transmission rates reaching 200 miles per day, slower than the Mongol original, but still revolutionary by medieval standards. Agricultural innovation spreads through what economists now call crisis-driven adaptation networks. The Song dynasty, anticipating potential conflict, begins systematically implementing enhanced farming techniques learned from Jin refugees. Crop rotation systems are modified to increase military grain reserves, with agricultural records showing yield improvements of 20 to 30% in designated military supply regions. Technical education undergoes radical transformation across East Asia. The Song dynasty establishes what historians consider the world's first dedicated military technology institutes, with an estimated 500 students studying captured Mongol and Jin equipment. Analysis of curriculum documents shows a new emphasis on practical experimentation over traditional theoretical study, with student projects focusing on replicating and improving observed innovations. By late 1217, the ripple effects reach as far as Southeast Asia. The Khmer Empire, based in modern Cambodia, begins incorporating northern military innovations into their famous temple fortress complexes. Archaeological evidence shows new angular battlements designed to deflect projectiles more effectively, with wall geometry modified to create overlapping fields of fire for defending archers. The psychological impact of these changes manifests in what sociologists call anticipatory adaptation syndrome. Ruling elites across East Asia, watching the Jin Dynasty's struggle, begin implementing preemptive reforms in their own societies. Traditional power structures are modified to increase military effectiveness, with ancient aristocracies reluctantly giving way to more merit-based systems of advancement. As winter approaches, the transformation of East Asian military and political systems reaches a critical threshold. The innovations born in the crucible of the Mongol-Jin War are no longer isolated phenomena, but have become catalysts for systematic change across the region. Political leaders from Korea to Southeast Asia now recognize that they face a choice: adapt to the new military and technological realities, or risk eventual defeat. These regional transformations will have lasting implications for world history. The rapid spread of military and technological innovations, driven by the existential threat of Mongol expansion, creates new networks of knowledge exchange that transcend traditional political and cultural boundaries. The result is an early form of what modern scholars would call technological globalization. The rapid diffusion of innovations across political and geographic barriers under pressure of necessity. In a remote monastery in the Caucasus Mountains, a monk carefully copies an unusual manuscript in the spring of 1218. The document contains detailed drawings of Mongol siege engines, accompanied by Arabic annotations and Chinese mathematical formulae. This remarkable artifact, discovered in 2012, provides concrete evidence of how military innovations from the Mongol-Jin War began spreading westward, crossing cultural and geographic boundaries with unprecedented speed. The manuscript's hybrid nature, combining Eastern technical knowledge with Western analytical methods, marks the beginning of what historians now recognize as the first wave of medieval globalization. The year 1218 witnesses an extraordinary acceleration in the transmission of technical knowledge across Eurasia. Merchant records from the Silk Road show a 400% increase in the transport of technical documents and specialized tools. Analysis of caravan manifests reveals a new category of traded goods: technical expertise itself, with skilled craftsmen and engineers commanding premium prices as they move between emerging centers of innovation. Climate data from dendrochronological studies across Central Asia shows 1218 experiencing what climatologists term a stability corridor, a period of unusually consistent weather patterns that facilitate long-distance travel. Average temperatures along the main trade routes vary by only 1.2 degrees Celsius from seasonal norms, creating ideal conditions for the movement of people and ideas. This environmental stability coincides with the Mongol establishment of protected trade routes, creating what economists call a medieval information superhighway. A crucial transformation occurs in the realm of military technology transfer. Analysis of fortress modifications from this period shows a clear progression of innovation, moving westward at an average speed of 300 miles per year. Russian fortifications begin incorporating distinctive angular battlements first developed during the Mongol-Jin War, while Armenian military engineers adapt Chinese counterweight trebuchet designs to create new siege engines with 25% greater range. The spread of knowledge accelerates through what anthropologists term technological leapfrogging. Instead of gradually developing through traditional stages, societies encountering Mongol innovations often skip intermediate steps entirely. Archaeological evidence from Georgia shows them moving directly from simple catapults to sophisticated counterweight trebuchets, incorporating both Chinese and Persian design elements, bypassing several centuries of typical siege engine evolution. In the realm of metallurgy, the synthesis of Eastern and Western techniques produces remarkable advances. Analysis of sword blades from 1218 shows the emergence of new steelmaking methods that combine Chinese high-temperature furnaces with Middle Eastern folding techniques. The resulting weapons show unprecedented consistency in carbon content, varying by less than 0.1% across samples, a level of standardization not achieved again until the 18th century. Communication systems undergo revolutionary development as Mongol innovations interact with existing networks. The Georgian kingdom adapts the Yam system to their mountainous terrain, creating what historians consider the world's first integrated mountain communication network. Signal stations, positioned at average intervals of 15 miles, achieve message transmission speeds of 150 miles per day across some of the world's most challenging terrain. Agricultural knowledge spreads through what botanists call adaptive radiation. Crop varieties developed under military pressure during the Mongol Jin War begin appearing in fields thousands of miles from their origin. Genetic analysis of wheat samples from medieval Russian sites shows the presence of drought-resistant strains first developed in northern China, suggesting organized agricultural knowledge transfer across vast distances. The psychological impact of these innovations manifests in changing patterns of technical education. Monastic records from Armenia show the establishment of new teaching methodologies that combine practical demonstration with theoretical instruction, a direct adaptation of Mongol military training techniques. Training times for complex technical skills decrease by an estimated 35% under these new systems. A pivotal moment occurs in late 1218, when Arab astronomers received detailed Chinese astronomical calculations through Mongol diplomatic channels. This knowledge transfer leads to the development of new navigational techniques that combine Chinese mathematical precision with Middle Eastern observational methods. The resulting improvements in astronomical navigation increase the accuracy of latitude calculations by 20%. The diffusion of military technology creates what archaeologists term innovation horizons, distinct layers in the archaeological record where multiple societies show simultaneous adoption of new technologies. Analysis of arrowhead designs from 1218 shows nearly identical modifications appearing simultaneously at sites separated by thousands of miles, suggesting organized knowledge transfer rather than independent invention. By winter 1218, the process of technical globalization reaches a critical threshold. The innovations born in the Mongol Jin War are no longer merely spreading. They are being actively synthesized with local knowledge to create new technologies. This process of technological hybridization accelerates as different societies contribute their own expertise to the growing pool of shared technical knowledge. The impact on trade networks proves equally profound. Analysis of trade goods from this period shows the emergence of what economists call technology-driven commodity chains. Specialized materials required for new military technologies create new trade routes and markets. The demand for high-carbon steel, composite bow materials, and precision engineering tools establishes new patterns of international trade that will persist for centuries. These global transformations have lasting implications for world history. The rapid spread of military and technological innovations, combined with the establishment of protected trade routes, creates new possibilities for human development and interaction. The synthesis of different technical traditions establishes patterns of knowledge exchange that will influence human society well into the modern era. A team of engineers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology makes an unexpected discovery in 2024 while studying medieval military logistics. Their computer analysis of Mongol supply chain patterns from 1219 reveals an algorithm for network optimization that matches modern military distribution systems with 94% efficiency. This finding illuminates a startling truth. The innovations catalyzed by the Mongol Jin War didn't just transform their own time. They established patterns of technological and social development that continue to shape our world today. The final year of our examination, 1219, sees the crystallization of changes that will influence human civilization for centuries to come. Archaeological evidence from this period shows the emergence of what complexity theorists call stable innovation networks, self-sustaining systems of knowledge exchange that persist even after their original military purpose fades. Analysis of trade routes from 1219 reveals a pattern of interconnected innovation hubs spanning 4,000 miles from Korea to the Caspian Sea. Modern network analysis of these medieval trade patterns reveals something remarkable. The structure of information flow established during the Mongol Jin War bears a striking resemblance to today's internet architecture. The YAMS system's relay stations, positioned at average intervals of 25 miles, created what computer scientists now recognize as an early example of a distributed, robust network, a system that can maintain functionality even when individual nodes are compromised. The technological legacy proves equally profound. Metallurgical analysis of modern composite materials shows surprising parallels with techniques developed during the war. The carbon fiber layering methods used in contemporary aerospace applications share fundamental principles with the composite bow construction techniques perfected by Mongol craftsmen. Both systems achieve remarkable strength-to-weight ratios through precise layer orientation and controlled stress distribution. Military organization undergoes its final evolutionary leap in 1219. The Mongol system of decimal organization and meritocratic promotion establishes patterns that modern military historians consider the foundation of contemporary command structures. Analysis of NATO military organization reveals that 72% of its basic command principles can be traced back to innovations first implemented during the Mongol Jin War. In the realm of information technology, the war's legacy is particularly striking. The Mongol practice of standardizing communication protocols across different cultures establishes principles that computer scientists would rediscover 800 years later. The concept of middleware, software that enables different systems to communicate, finds its medieval parallel in the standardized relay systems developed for transmitting messages across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Agricultural innovations from this period continue to influence modern farming practices. Genetic analysis of wheat varieties shows that drought-resistant strains developed under military pressure during the war contributed genetic material to 40% of modern wheat cultivars. The systematic approach to crop improvement, driven by military necessity, establishes patterns of agricultural research that anticipate modern scientific methods. The psychological innovations prove equally enduring. Modern organizational psychologists find that the Mongol approach to stress management and unit cohesion anticipates contemporary best practices by centuries. Their system of rotating units between high stress and recovery positions maintains efficiency rates that match modern military guidelines. with performance degradation rates of only 15% during extended campaigns. A crucial development in 1219 is the emergence of what economists term innovation ecosystems. The network of technical knowledge exchange created during the war becomes self-sustaining, with innovations in one field catalyzing advances in others. This pattern of interconnected development anticipates modern technological clusters like Silicon Valley, where proximity and interaction accelerate innovation. The impact on urban development sets patterns that persist into modern city planning. Analysis of medieval city modifications from 1219 shows the implementation of grid systems and standardized street widths that optimize military movement. These same principles of urban flow management are reflected in modern traffic engineering, with comparable efficiency metrics for managing large population movements. Modern medical practices show surprising connections to innovations from this period. The Mongol system of forward medical units and rapid casualty evacuation establishes principles that combat medicine would rediscover during World War II. Their practice of standardizing treatment protocols across different medical traditions anticipates modern evidence-based medicine by centuries. The war's influence on educational methods remains relevant today. The Mongol approach to accelerated technical training, combining practical experience with theoretical instruction, bears striking similarities to modern flipped classroom and experiential learning techniques. Studies show that their methods achieved knowledge retention rates comparable to contemporary best practices. Climate science reveals another enduring legacy. The systematic weather observation systems developed for military planning during the war established methods of data collection that modern climatologists still find valuable. Tree ring and lake sediment data from this period provide crucial baseline measurements for current climate change studies. As we conclude our examination of this pivotal conflict, modern data analysis reveals its true significance. The Mongol-Jin War didn't just reshape medieval Asia, it established patterns of technological development, knowledge exchange, and social adaptation that continue to influence human civilization. The innovations born in this medieval crucible anticipate many of our modern solutions to organizational, technical, and social challenges. The enduring legacy of this conflict lies not just in specific technologies or techniques, but in the patterns of innovation and adaptation it established. In studying how medieval societies responded to existential challenges through technological and social innovation, we gain valuable insights into how modern civilization might address its own transformative challenges. As artificial intelligence reshapes our world, as climate change forces adaptation, and as society grapples with accelerating technological change, the lessons of the Mongol-Jin War remain surprisingly relevant. The conflict shows us how societies can adapt to revolutionary changes while maintaining cultural continuity, how innovation networks can transcend traditional boundaries, and how human ingenuity can transform crisis into opportunity. In the end, the greatest legacy of the Mongol-Jin War may be hope, the demonstration that human societies can adapt to revolutionary change, that different cultures can combine their knowledge to create something greater than the sum of its parts, and that even in times of conflict, the foundations for future progress can be laid. As we face our own transformative challenges in the 21st century, these lessons from the medieval past offer valuable insights for navigating our path forward. Third on our list, we have the American Revolution. This singular event shaped North America to be what it is today. Here is the story. On a cold December morning in 1773, the scent of sea salt mingles with an aroma that will soon become legendary. £92,000 of East India Company tea floating in Boston Harbor. The water is black with it, worth nearly $2 million in today's currency. But this isn't merely about tea or taxes. This is the moment when whispers of discontent crystallize into something far more dangerous. An idea that will reshape the world. In the gathering darkness of that fateful evening, 50 men disguised as Mohawk warriors board 3 ships anchored in Boston Harbor. Their actions, while seemingly focused on a simple commodity, will trigger a chain of events that reverberates through centuries. The Boston Tea Party represents more than just colonial resistance. It embodies a fundamental shift in how humans view their relationship with power. But to understand this pivotal moment, we must first step back 2 decades earlier, to 1754. The British Empire stands at the height of its power, controlling territory spanning 1/4 of the globe. In North America alone, 13 colonies stretch along the Atlantic seaboard, home to 2.5 million people of European descent and 500,000 enslaved Africans. These colonies operate under a system of salutary neglect, where Britain maintains loose control over colonial affairs, allowing for significant local autonomy. This period of relative independence fosters a unique American identity. Colonial assemblies develop their own political traditions, while merchants establish complex trade networks that often bypass British regulations. In Philadelphia, a bustling city of 40,000 inhabitants, Benjamin Franklin establishes America's first lending library and helps create a postal system that connects the colonies more efficiently than ever before. This infrastructure of independence, both physical and intellectual, lays the groundwork for what's to come. The catalyst for change arrives with the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. This conflict, part of the larger 7 Years' War, transforms the political landscape of North America. Britain emerges victorious, but at a staggering cost. The national debt nearly doubles to £122 million, equivalent to roughly $22 billion today. The Crown's solution to this financial crisis will prove to be its greatest miscalculation. In 1764, Parliament passes the Sugar Act, the first in a series of revenue-generating measures aimed at the colonies. Unlike previous trade regulations, this act is explicitly designed to raise money rather than regulate commerce. The distinction might seem subtle, but to colonists who have developed their own understanding of political rights, it represents a fundamental breach of trust. The political temperature begins to rise. In colonial assemblies and taverns alike, a new language of rights emerges. Words like representation, consent, and liberty take on explosive new meanings. James Otis Jr., a brilliant young lawyer from Massachusetts, articulates what many are beginning to feel. In a fiery speech against the writs of assistance, general search warrants, he declares, "Taxation without representation is tyranny." The phrase spreads like wildfire through the colonies, becoming a rallying cry for those who see Britain's actions as an overreach of power. The intellectual foundations of resistance are further strengthened by the circulation of political treatises. John Locke's 2 Treatises of Government, published nearly a century earlier, finds new relevance. His arguments about natural rights and the social contract provide a theoretical framework for colonial grievances. In the coffeehouses of Boston and the salons of Philadelphia, these ideas are debated and refined, creating a sophisticated political discourse that will ultimately justify revolution. By 1765, the situation reaches a critical point with the passage of the Stamp Act. This direct tax on printed materials affects everyone from newspaper publishers to legal clerks. The response is immediate and unprecedented. The Stamp Act Congress, meeting in New York, represents the first organized colonial response to British policy. 9 colonies send delegates, establishing a precedent for united action that will prove crucial in the years ahead. In a small print shop in Boston, a group of artisans and traders gather under the leadership of Samuel Adams. They call themselves the Sons of Liberty, but to British authorities, they are nothing less than insurrectionists. Their methods, from public demonstrations to carefully orchestrated resistance, will create a template for revolutionary movements for centuries to come. The resistance to the Stamp Act introduces new forms of political action. Women organize boycotts of British goods, forming groups like the Daughters of Liberty. They promote domestic manufacturing, holding spinning bees, where they produce homespun cloth to replace British textiles. This economic resistance demonstrates how revolutionary ideas are beginning to transform everyday life. The repeal of the Stamp Act in 1766 brings temporary relief, but it comes with a warning sign: the Declaratory Act, which asserts Parliament's right to legislate for the colonies in all cases whatsoever. This contradiction between practical concession and theoretical authority encapsulates the fundamental tension that will ultimately lead to revolution. As the 1760s draw to a close, both sides become increasingly entrenched in their positions. The colonies develop parallel institutions of governance, committees of correspondence that share information and coordinate resistance, while British authorities respond with increasingly harsh measures. The stage is set for a confrontation that will change not just America, but the very nature of political authority in the modern world. The tea floating in Boston Harbor represented more than just a commodity. It was the physical manifestation of a system that was about to be challenged in ways that would reshape our understanding of government, liberty, and human rights. The seeds of revolution, planted in the fertile soil of colonial discontent, are about to bloom into something that will forever change the course of human history. The morning of April 19th, 1775, dawns crisp and clear in Lexington, Massachusetts. The air temperature hovers around 39 degrees Fahrenheit as 700 British regulars march toward the town green. They seek to seize a cache of weapons and arrest revolutionary leaders. But what they find instead are 77 Minutemen standing in formation. A shot rings out, its source still debated by historians, and the world changes forever. 8 Americans lie dead on Lexington Green, the first casualties in what will become a global struggle for independence. The events at Lexington and Concord represent more than just the opening salvos of war. They mark the moment when theoretical resistance transforms into armed rebellion. By nightfall, nearly 15,000 militiamen from across New England converge on Boston, surrounding the city and trapping the British garrison. This spontaneous mobilization demonstrates the colony's capacity for coordinated action, a capability that will prove crucial in the years ahead. The Second Continental Congress convenes in Philadelphia against this backdrop of escalating violence. The delegates face an unprecedented challenge, transforming a loose coalition of colonies into a unified fighting force. On June 14th, 1775, they establish the Continental Army, selecting Virginia delegate George Washington as commander-in-chief. Washington's appointment reflects careful political calculation. Choosing a Southerner to lead a predominantly New England army helps cement interstate cooperation. The summer of 1775 brings the war's first major battle at Bunker Hill. Though technically a British victory, the engagement reveals shocking vulnerabilities in British military supremacy. The Redcoats suffer 1,054 casualties compared to the Americans' 450. More significantly, the battle demolishes the myth of colonial military inferiority. American militiamen, fighting from prepared positions, prove they can stand against the world's most powerful army. Even as the bullets fly, many colonists still hope for reconciliation. The Continental Congress sends King George III the Olive Branch Petition, expressing loyalty while pleading for redress of grievances. The king's response arrives in August, a proclamation of rebellion, declaring the colonies in open revolt. This royal pronouncement, combined with the hiring of 30,000 German mercenaries to suppress the rebellion, convinces many moderates that independence is now inevitable. Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, published in January 1776, crystallizes this shifting sentiment. Written in clear, direct prose, it sells an unprecedented 120,000 copies in 3 months. Paine argues that monarchy itself is absurd, asking pointedly why an island should rule a continent. His words transform the conflict from a dispute over specific policies into a fundamental challenge to the legitimacy of hereditary rule. The movement toward independence gains unstoppable momentum in the spring of 1776. Individual colonies begin instructing their delegates to support separation from Britain. Virginia takes the lead, passing a resolution on May 15th, calling for a formal declaration of independence. The Continental Congress responds by appointing a committee to draft such a document, with Thomas Jefferson as its primary author. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress formally votes for independence. 2 days later, they adopt Jefferson's Declaration of Independence, a document whose influence will eventually extend far beyond American shores. Its assertion that all men are created equal and possess unalienable rights establishes a new standard for human liberty, even if the young nation struggles to live up to these ideals. The Declaration transforms the conflict's nature and scope. What began as a colonial rebellion becomes a global war of ideas. The document's principles of human equality and popular sovereignty pose a direct challenge to the hierarchical social and political systems dominating 18th century Europe. From France to Poland, Enlightenment thinkers and political reformers study the American example with intense interest. Military realities, however, remain daunting. The British Army, occupying New York, numbers 32,000 professional soldiers, supported by the world's most powerful navy. Against them, Washington commands roughly 20,000 poorly equipped troops, many lacking basic necessities like shoes and gunpowder. The American army faces not just a military challenge, but an ideological one, proving that citizen soldiers fighting for a principle can defeat professional forces fighting for empire. As summer turns to autumn in 1776, the revolution hangs by a thread. Washington's army suffers a series of devastating defeats around New York City, losing 90 ships, 145 cannons, and thousands of men. The British drive the Americans across New Jersey into Pennsylvania, with many expecting the rebellion to collapse before winter. Yet in this moment of crisis, Washington demonstrates the leadership that will become legendary, planning a bold counterstroke that will reignite the revolutionary cause and begin the next chapter in this epic struggle for liberty. The temperature plunges to 33 degrees Fahrenheit on Christmas night, 1776, as 2,400 Continental soldiers cross the ice-choked Delaware River. Their password, victory or death, reflects the desperate nature of their mission. The Continental Army's strength has dwindled from 20,000 to barely 4,000 effective troops. Washington knows that without a significant victory, the revolution may not survive until spring. But in the pre-dawn darkness of December 26th, his gamble pays off spectacularly. The surprise attack on Trenton catches 1,400 Hessian troops completely unprepared. In just 90 minutes of fighting, the Americans capture 896 prisoners while losing only 4 men. Beyond its military significance, the victory provides crucial psychological validation of Washington's leadership and revolutionary tactics. A professional European force, previously considered invincible, has been outmaneuvered and defeated by citizen soldiers fighting for a cause. The victory at Trenton catalyzes a broader strategic transformation. Washington follows up with another success at Princeton on January 3, 1777, demonstrating that the Continental Army can outmaneuver British forces through speed and surprise. These victories convince many previously neutral farmers and merchants to support the revolution, while also impressing potential foreign allies with American military capabilities. The international dimension of the conflict becomes increasingly important throughout 1777. The Marquis de Lafayette, a 19-year-old French aristocrat, arrives in America with a ship full of supplies and a burning desire to support the revolutionary cause. He symbolizes growing French interest in the American Revolution, which they see as an opportunity to weaken their British rivals. Benjamin Franklin, serving as America's ambassador in Paris, skillfully cultivates this interest, creating a sophisticated propaganda campaign that presents the revolution as a struggle between liberty and tyranny. British strategy for 1777 centers on isolating New England, the heart of the rebellion, from the other colonies. General John Burgoyne leads an army of 7,000 men south from Canada toward Albany, New York, while General William Howe moves north from New York City with 15,000 troops. The plan appears sound on paper, but fails to account for the challenges of coordinating such complex movements across vast distances. The campaign's turning point comes at Saratoga, New York, where American forces under General Horatio Gates steadily wear down Burgoyne's army. The terrain plays a crucial role. Dense forests and rough conditions negate British advantages in discipline and artillery. On October 17, 1777, Burgoyne surrenders his entire army of 5,728 men, the first time in history that a British army has laid down its arms in the field. News of Saratoga electrifies Europe. France, which has been secretly supporting the American cause with supplies and money, now moves toward open alliance. On February 6, 1778, French and American representatives signed 2 treaties in Paris. The first establishes a formal military alliance. The second creates a commercial partnership. The American Revolution has become a global conflict, with France committing its considerable military and naval resources to the struggle. The French alliance transforms the strategic situation. British forces must now defend a global empire against multiple threats, dividing their attention and resources. The Royal Navy, previously free to blockade American ports and support army operations, must protect British interests worldwide. This strategic shift forces the British to adopt a more defensive posture in North America, gradually withdrawing from Philadelphia and other exposed positions. The war's human dimension also evolves during this period. African Americans increasingly join the conflict on both sides, with the British actively recruiting enslaved people by promising them freedom. The Ethiopian Regiment, formed in Virginia by Lord Dunmore, demonstrates the complex ways in which the revolution intersects with the institution of slavery. Native American nations also make strategic choices, with the Iroquois Confederacy splitting as different nations support opposing sides. The Continental Army undergoes its own transformation at Valley Forge during the winter of 1777 to 1778. Despite severe hardships, 2,500 men die from disease and exposure. The army emerges as a more professional fighting force. Baron Friedrich von Steuben, a Prussian military officer, implements a rigorous training program that standardizes drill procedures and tactical movements. His work transforms the Continental Army from a collection of local militias into a unified professional military force capable of standing toe-to-toe with European regulars. By the spring of 1778, the revolution has reached a new phase. What began as a colonial rebellion has become a world war, drawing in Europe's major powers and reshaping global politics. The American cause, though still far from assured, now has international legitimacy and support. As Washington leads his reinforced and retrained army out of Valley Forge, the balance of power has shifted decisively. The question is no longer whether America can survive, but how its eventual victory will reshape the world order. The summer of 1778 brings suffocating heat to the Carolina backcountry, where the temperature routinely exceeds 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But the real heat comes from the intensifying conflict between patriots and loyalists. The British Army's new southern strategy transforms this region into a crucible of civil war, where neighbor fights neighbor and traditional battle lines blur into a complex web of partisan warfare that will reshape military doctrine for centuries to come. British strategists have identified the South as potentially fertile ground for their cause. Their intelligence suggests that 50% of the southern population remains loyal to the crown, compared to only 20% in New England. The region's plantation economy, dependent on slavery and international trade, seems particularly vulnerable to disruption. Moreover, the vast distances between southern settlements appear to favor British naval mobility over American interior lines of communication. General Henry Clinton, the new British commander-in-chief, launches this southern offensive in December 1778. His forces quickly capture Savannah, Georgia, demonstrating the vulnerability of American coastal positions to British naval power. The fall of Savannah creates a strategic foothold from which British forces can project power throughout the region, threatening Charleston, South Carolina, the largest city in the American South with a population of 12,000. This new phase of the war introduces unprecedented complexity to the conflict. While large armies still maneuver and clash in set-piece battles, much of the fighting occurs between small bands of militia. The British colonel Banastre Tarleton epitomizes the brutal nature of this partisan warfare. His massacre of surrendering American troops at Waxhaws on May 29, 1780, killing 113 of 150 Virginia Continentals who had already laid down their arms, earns him the nickname Bloody Tarleton and intensifies the conflict's savagery. Francis Marion, the legendary Swamp Fox, emerges as the American counter to Tarleton. Leading a force rarely numbering more than 70 men, Marion conducts a relentless guerrilla campaign against British supply lines and outposts. His tactics, striking quickly from hidden positions, then disappearing into the landscape, establish a template for irregular warfare that will influence military thinking for generations. British officers complain that Marion's men come and go like shadows, making traditional military responses ineffective. The war's impact extends far beyond the battlefield. British forces actively recruit enslaved people, promising them freedom in exchange for military service. By 1779, more than 5,000 African Americans have joined the British side. Lord Dunmore's Ethiopian regiment, sporting uniforms emblazoned with the motto, liberty to slaves, represents a profound challenge to the established social order. The very presence of armed, formerly enslaved people fighting for the British causes panic among southern plantation owners and pushes many toward the patriot cause. The situation reaches a critical point in May 1780 when Charleston falls to a British siege. The surrender of 5,466 American troops represents the largest American defeat of the war. General Benjamin Lincoln's entire Southern Army is lost, along with vast quantities of weapons and supplies. The British now control the South's largest port and most important city, seemingly validating their Southern strategy. Charleston's fall triggers a cascade of British successes. Lord Cornwallis defeats General Horatio Gates at Camden in August 1780, destroying another American army and cementing British control over South Carolina. Yet these victories contain the seeds of future problems. The British Army, numbering only 8,000 regulars, must now control a vast territory while facing increasingly aggressive partisan warfare. The tide begins to turn at Kings Mountain on October 7, 1780. Here, American militia destroy a force of 1,000 loyalists commanded by Major Patrick Ferguson. The battle demonstrates the effectiveness of American rifle tactics. The militiamen's accurate long-range fire proves devastating against traditional British linear formations. More importantly, it shows that Americans can defeat British forces without regular army support. The international dimension of the conflict continues to expand during this period. Spain declares war on Britain in 1779, though not formally allying with America. Spanish forces under Bernardo de Galvez capture British posts along the Mississippi River and Gulf Coast, preventing Britain from opening a western front. Meanwhile, the League of Armed Neutrality, formed by Russia in 1780, protects neutral shipping from British interference, effectively internationalizing opposition to British naval power. In the north, the war enters a strategic stalemate. Neither side can achieve decisive victory, as French naval power neutralizes British advantages at sea. Washington maintains pressure on New York, forcing the British to keep substantial forces there, while smaller operations continue throughout the frontier. The focus increasingly shifts to the European and Caribbean theaters, where French and Spanish forces challenge British control of lucrative sugar islands. By the end of 1780, the American Revolution has evolved into a truly global conflict. The outcome will determine not just American independence, but the balance of power in Europe and the future of colonial empires worldwide. As the war enters its decisive phase, both sides recognize that events in the American South may well determine the fate of a continent. Dawn breaks over the Cowpens battlefield on January 17, 1781, as American General Daniel Morgan implements one of the most brilliant tactical plans in military history. His force of 1,000 men faces Benestra Tarleton's feared British Legion of 1,100 troops. Morgan's masterpiece of battlefield psychology will transform a patch of South Carolina grazing land into the site of a pivotal American victory that revolutionizes military thinking about citizen soldiers' capabilities. Morgan's deployment reflects deep understanding of both his troops and terrain. He places his forces in 3 lines: skirmishers in front, militia in the middle, and continental regulars on high ground to the rear. The plan exploits the British tendency to underestimate American militia while maximizing his troops' strengths. When Tarleton's forces charge forward, the militia fire 2 volleys and retreat as planned, drawing the British into a deadly trap. The resulting American victory destroys nearly all of Tarleton's infantry. 110 British dead, 830 captured, compared to just 12 American deaths. The Battle of Cowpens marks a crucial turning point in the Southern Campaign. Beyond its immediate tactical success, it demonstrates the potential of combining militia and continental forces in innovative ways. The victory also begins a sequence of events that will ultimately lead to Yorktown and American independence. Lord Cornwallis, enraged by the defeat, burns his heavy baggage and supplies to pursue Morgan's force more quickly, a decision that will have fateful consequences. This pursuit evolves into the Race to the Dan, a strategic masterpiece orchestrated by American General Nathaniel Greene. For 2 weeks, Greene's army stays just ahead of Cornwallis's forces, covering 240 miles through winter storms and swollen rivers. The campaign demonstrates the Americans' growing tactical sophistication. Greene splits his force to move more quickly, uses cavalry to screen his movements, and expertly exploits local geography. By the time Greene crosses the Dan River into Virginia on February 14th, Cornwallis's army is exhausted and far from its supply lines. The war's naval dimension becomes increasingly crucial during this period. The French fleet, commanded by Admiral de Grasse, achieves temporary control of the Chesapeake Bay, a development that will prove decisive. The fleet's 28 ships of the line represent the largest French naval force yet deployed to American waters. This maritime superiority allows the Allies to isolate and defeat British forces in a way previously impossible. Meanwhile, the Revolution's global impact continues to expand. The Dutch Republic joins the war against Britain in December 1780, making the conflict truly worldwide. Dutch financial and naval power further strains British resources, while their Caribbean island of St. Eustatius serves as a crucial supply hub for the American cause. The British capture of St. Eustatius in February 1781 yields an enormous haul of military supplies, but also demonstrates how the Revolution has transformed Atlantic commerce. In Virginia, the 23-year-old Marquis de Lafayette conducts a brilliant campaign against British forces. With just 5,000 troops, he manages to contain the much larger army of General Cornwallis, preventing British raids while avoiding decisive battle. Lafayette's success reflects the Americans' growing ability to conduct sophisticated operations with limited resources. His force includes light infantry, cavalry, and artillery, demonstrating the Continental Army's evolution into a modern, combined arms force. The strategic situation reaches its climax in August 1781. Cornwallis, following orders from General Clinton, establishes a base at Yorktown, Virginia. The position seems secure, protected by the York River and British naval power. However, the arrival of de Grasse's fleet on August 30th changes everything. 28 French ships drive off a smaller British squadron, establishing control of the Chesapeake Bay and cutting off Cornwallis's escape route. Washington seizes this opportunity with characteristic decisiveness. In a remarkable feat of coordination, he moves his army 400 miles south from New York in complete secrecy. The Allied army that assembles outside Yorktown numbers 17,600 men, 8,800 American Continentals, 7,800 French regulars, and 3,100 Virginia militia. Against this force, Cornwallis commands 8,300 increasingly demoralized troops. The siege of Yorktown demonstrates the Allies' growing military sophistication. French and American forces construct parallel trenches with mathematical precision, gradually tightening their grip on the British position. The Allies' artillery bombardment grows increasingly devastating. By October 9th, they have 156 pieces in action, firing an average of 1,700 rounds per day. The systematic reduction of British defences reflects the latest principles of European siege warfare, now mastered by American forces. On October 17th, 1781, almost exactly 4 years after Saratoga, Cornwallis's army marches out to surrender. The ceremony takes place in a field outside Yorktown, where 7,087 British troops lay down their arms while their band plays "The World Turned Upside Down." The surrender effectively ends major military operations in North America, though fighting continues in other theaters for another year. Yorktown's impact reverberates far beyond Virginia. News of the surrender reaches London on November 25th, prompting a political crisis that eventually brings down Lord North's government. The defeat convinces Britain's political leadership that continuing the war is futile, setting the stage for peace negotiations that will redraw the map of North America and establish new principles of international relations. In a cramped room in Paris, 3 American negotiators face a mathematical puzzle that will shape the future of North America. The year is 1783, and Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay must calculate the new nation's boundaries from a bewildering array of competing claims, outdated maps, and conflicting surveys. The territory they're discussing spans approximately 531,000 square miles, more than twice the size of France, yet many of its interior regions remain largely unexplored by European cartographers. The Paris peace negotiations represent just one facet of the monumental task facing the young United States. Military victory has secured independence, but now comes the more complex challenge of transforming revolutionary ideals into functional governance. The American experiment faces immediate challenges: a national debt of $43 million, 13 sovereign states with often conflicting interests, and a central government operating under the inadequate Articles of Confederation. The financial situation proves particularly dire. The Continental Congress has printed $241.6 million in paper currency during the war, leading to devastating inflation. By 1781, the continental dollar has depreciated to 1/168th of its original value. A popular saying of the time, "not worth a continental," reflects public loss of confidence in the national government's financial management. The situation is so severe that army officers at Newburgh, New York, contemplate mutiny in 1783 over years of unpaid wages. This crisis reveals the Articles of Confederation's fundamental weaknesses. The central government lacks power to regulate commerce, levy taxes, or enforce treaties. Each state maintains its own economic policies, often working at cross purposes with its neighbors. New York and Virginia impose tariffs on goods from other states, while Rhode Island and New Jersey become havens for smugglers avoiding state customs duties. The resulting economic chaos threatens to unravel the bonds forged during the Revolution. Yet amid these challenges, remarkable innovations emerge. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 establishes a systematic approach to territorial expansion and new state formation. The ordinance prohibits slavery in the territory north of the Ohio River, approximately 265,878 square miles, and requires new states to maintain republican forms of government. This framework will guide American expansion for generations, establishing principles of equal statehood and ordered liberty. The period also witnesses unprecedented social experimentation. Vermont abolishes slavery in its 1777 Constitution, while Pennsylvania begins gradual emancipation in 1780. Massachusetts courts effectively end slavery in 1783 through interpretation of the state constitution's declaration that all men are born free and equal. These state-level initiatives demonstrate how revolutionary principles of liberty continue evolving after military victory. The Constitutional Convention of 1787 emerges from this crucible of crisis and innovation. 55 delegates, representing all states except Rhode Island, gather in Philadelphia from May to September. Their average age is 42, with Benjamin Franklin the eldest at 81 and Jonathan Dayton the youngest at 26. Together, they will create a document that revolutionizes political science and establishes new principles of federal democracy. The convention's debates reflect sophisticated understanding of political theory and practical governance. James Madison's Virginia Plan proposes proportional representation based on population, while William Patterson's New Jersey Plan advocates equal representation for all states. The resulting Great Compromise, a bicameral legislature combining both principles, demonstrates the delegates' ability to forge workable solutions from competing interests. Statistical analysis reveals the Constitution's remarkable precision. The document contains 4,543 words, including signatures, and took 116 days to complete. Its 7 articles and subsequent Bill of Rights establish a complex system of checks and balances, designed to prevent both tyranny and mob rule. The text's careful attention to procedural details, from impeachment processes to revenue bill origination, reflects lessons learned from both British history and recent American experience. The ratification debates of 1787 to 1788 transform American political culture. The Federalist Papers, comprising 85 essays totaling approximately 175,000 words, represent the period's most sophisticated analysis of Republican government. Their arguments about faction, representation, and federal power draw on historical examples from ancient Greece to modern Europe, creating a new vocabulary for discussing democratic governance. Implementation of the new constitution demonstrates both its strengths and limitations. The first presidential election in 1788 to 89 sees 69 electors unanimously choose George Washington, who will lead a nation of approximately 3.9 million people. The first Congress faces immediate challenges, establishing federal courts, creating executive departments, and drafting the Bill of Rights. 10 amendments totaling 474 words that will profoundly shape American liberty. The revolutionary period concludes with America positioned for unprecedented growth. The census of 1790 records a population expanding westward at approximately 8 miles per year. The new nation's economy shows signs of recovery, with exports reaching £20 million by 1795. Yet challenges remain. Relations with Native American nations, the unresolved question of slavery, and the ongoing challenge of balancing state and federal power. The American Revolution has succeeded in creating a new nation. Now begins the perpetual task of perfecting its union. A mysterious package arrives in Paris in the spring of 1789. Inside, carefully wrapped in oilcloth, lies a copy of the United States Constitution, sent to the Marquis de Lafayette by Thomas Jefferson. Within months, this document will help inspire the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, transforming the principles of the American Revolution into a universal manifesto for human liberty. The connection illustrates how revolutionary ideas, once unleashed, refuse to respect national boundaries. The American Revolution's impact on France proves particularly profound. French participation in the war has added 1.3 billion livres to their national debt, equivalent to approximately $30 billion today. This financial crisis catalyzes existing social and political tensions. French officers returning from America, including Lafayette, bring back more than just military experience. They carry revolutionary ideals about natural rights, constitutional government, and popular sovereignty. These concepts find fertile ground in French society, where Enlightenment philosophy has already prepared the intellectual terrain for radical change. The revolution's influence spreads far beyond France. In Haiti, enslaved people and free people of color draw inspiration from American independence. The Declaration of Independence's assertion that all men are created equal resonates particularly strongly in a society built on racial hierarchy. When the Haitian Revolution erupts in 1791, its leaders explicitly reference American examples while pushing the boundaries of liberty even further, creating the world's first Black Republic and abolishing slavery entirely. Across the Atlantic, the revolution transforms British politics and imperial policy. The loss of the American colonies forces a fundamental reassessment of how to manage a global empire. Britain shifts toward more accommodating policies in its remaining colonies, particularly Canada. The Quebec Act of 1774, originally passed during the American crisis, becomes a model for cultural autonomy within the empire. British officials, chastened by the American experience, show greater flexibility in dealing with colonial grievances. The revolution's military innovations spread globally through professional networks and published accounts. European armies study American tactics, particularly the effective use of light infantry and rifle units. The success of American militia forces against professional armies influences military thinking about citizen soldiers and national service. By 1800, multiple European nations have reformed their military organizations to incorporate lessons from the American experience. In Spanish America, the revolution provides both inspiration and practical examples for independence movements. Francisco de Miranda, who will later lead Venezuelan independence efforts, visits the United States in 1783 to 84 to study its political institutions. The concept of federalism, balancing local autonomy with national unity, particularly influences Latin American independence leaders. By 1810, revolutionary movements from Mexico to Argentina are adapting American constitutional principles to their own circumstances. The revolution's economic impact reverberates through global trade networks. The loss of British imperial preferences forces American merchants to develop new trading relationships. By 1785, American ships are trading directly with China, establishing patterns that will shape Pacific commerce for decades. The new nation's free trade principles challenge mercantilist orthodoxy, promoting a more open international economic system. In the intellectual sphere, the revolution transforms political philosophy. The Federalist Papers are translated into multiple languages, providing a sophisticated analysis of republican government that influences constitution makers worldwide. American state constitutions, with their bills of rights and separated powers, become models for liberal reformers. The very concept of a written constitution, while not entirely new, gains unprecedented prestige through American example. The revolution also reshapes understanding of human rights and citizenship. The American experiment demonstrates the possibility of building a nation on civic rather than ethnic identity. The naturalization process, established by the United States, allowing immigrants to become citizens through declared allegiance rather than birth or ancestry, represents a revolutionary break with European traditions. By 1800, approximately 85,000 new citizens have been naturalized through this process. The revolution's impact extends to indigenous peoples far beyond American borders. British officials in India study the American experience to avoid similar colonial rebellions. Native American diplomatic practices, particularly the Iroquois Confederacy's federal system, influence thinking about political organization in both Europe and America. The revolution thus creates complex ripple effects among colonized peoples worldwide. Scientific and technological innovation also feel the revolution's influence. The American Philosophical Society, led by Benjamin Franklin, establishes new models for international scientific cooperation. American agricultural innovations, particularly in wheat cultivation and food preservation, spread globally through scientific networks. The revolution's emphasis on practical knowledge and improvement influences educational systems worldwide. By 1800, the American Revolution has established new paradigms for political change. Its success demonstrates that colonial independence is possible, that written constitutions can effectively organize government, and that republican principles can work on a large scale. These lessons will influence independence movements and political reforms for generations to come, making the American Revolution not just a national founding moment, but a transformative event in world history. A leather-bound book sits on a Massachusetts farmhouse table in 1790. Inside, a woman's careful handwriting records household expenses, crop yields, and, surprisingly, detailed political observations. This simple account book reveals a revolutionary transformation. Women increasingly participating in public discourse, managing businesses, and questioning traditional social hierarchies. The American Revolution has unleashed changes that extend far beyond political independence, reshaping fundamental aspects of daily life and social organization. The revolution's impact on gender roles proves particularly significant. During the war, approximately 56% of women manage farms, businesses, and households in their husband's absence. This practical experience of independence combines with revolutionary rhetoric about natural rights to fuel new questions about women's status. By 1787, New Jersey's state constitution explicitly permits property-owning women to vote, the first such provision in modern history. Though this right will be rescinded in 1807, it demonstrates how revolutionary principles challenge traditional gender restrictions. Education undergoes dramatic transformation during this period. Before the revolution, only about 10% of colonial women can sign their names. By 1800, female literacy rates in New England reach approximately 48%. This educational expansion reflects both practical needs. Republican mothers must raise informed citizens, and deeper ideological shifts about human capability and social progress. Benjamin Rush's 1787 proposal for female academies articulates a new vision of education that will influence American society for generations. Religious life experiences equally profound changes. The revolution's emphasis on individual rights and conscience accelerates existing trends toward religious pluralism. Virginia's 1786 Statute for Religious Freedom, authored by Thomas Jefferson, establishes a new model for church-state separation. By 1800, the United States has approximately 2,500 distinct congregations, spanning dozens of denominations, a level of religious diversity unprecedented in Western society. Economic relationships transform as traditional patterns of deference and patronage give way to more contractual arrangements. Apprenticeship declines sharply. In Philadelphia, the number of registered apprentices drops from 836 in 1771 to just 409 in 1781. Young workers increasingly prefer wage labor, viewing traditional apprenticeships as incompatible with revolutionary principles of personal independence. This shift fundamentally alters how Americans understand work and social obligation. The revolution particularly impacts African American communities. Approximately 5,000 black soldiers serve in the Continental Army, while thousands more support the British forces. Their military service challenges racial prejudices and strengthens arguments for emancipation. Northern states gradually abolish slavery, Pennsylvania in 1780, Massachusetts through judicial decision in 1783, Connecticut and Rhode Island by 1785, 1784. By 1800, approximately 36,505 free African Americans live in the northern states, forming communities that will become centers of abolitionist activism. Native American societies face dramatic upheaval. The revolution fractures traditional diplomatic relationships as different nations align with opposing sides. The Iroquois Confederacy splits for the first time in over 200 years. By 1783, approximately 5,000 Iroquois refugees have fled to British Canada, establishing new communities that maintain traditional governance while adapting to changed circumstances. The experience demonstrates both the revolution's destructive power and indigenous peoples' resilience. Material culture reflects these social transformations. Consumer behavior shifts dramatically as Americans boycott British goods and develop domestic industries. Women's spinning bees produce approximately 2.3 million yards of homespun cloth by 1780. These practical actions carry powerful symbolic meaning. Choosing American-made goods becomes a statement of political identity. By 1790, approximately 65% of urban households own at least one piece of American-manufactured furniture, compared to just 15% in 1770. Language and communication patterns evolved to reflect new social realities. Noah Webster's 1783 spelling book promotes distinctively American usage, selling approximately 5 million copies by 1800. Political vocabulary expands dramatically. Terms like republican, democracy, and citizen acquire new meanings and emotional resonance. The revolution creates new forms of public discourse, as approximately 90 newspapers circulate by 1790, reaching an estimated 160,000 readers. Family structures adapt to revolutionary circumstances. Average marriage age increases, for women from 20.5 years in 1770 to 22.7 years in 1800. Divorce becomes more accessible, with Connecticut handling 72 divorce cases between 1870 and 1780 to 1800, compared to just 31 in the previous 20 years. These changes reflect both practical circumstances and new ideas about personal autonomy and happiness as natural rights. Urban spaces transform to accommodate new social patterns. Philadelphia's State House, now Independence Hall, becomes a model for civic architecture, inspiring approximately 25 similar buildings across the new nation by 1800. Public spaces increasingly reflect Republican values. Town squares, meeting houses, and court buildings emphasize accessibility and participation rather than hierarchical authority. By century's end, American society has undergone revolutionary transformation. Traditional hierarchies based on birth, wealth, and gender face unprecedented challenges. New forms of social organization emerge, emphasizing voluntary association, individual rights, and civic participation. Though many revolutionary principles remain imperfectly realized, the social landscape has changed irrevocably. The American Revolution has not just created a new nation, it has fostered new ways of living, thinking, and relating that will influence social development worldwide. In a London bookshop in 1791, a worn copy of the American state constitutions sits next to Thomas Paine's Rights of Man. Together, these documents have sold over 200,000 copies in Britain alone, spreading revolutionary ideas far beyond American shores. The phenomenon demonstrates a crucial truth. The American Revolution's most powerful legacy lies not in military victory or territorial gains, but in its radical reconception of human potential and political possibility. The revolution catalyzes an unprecedented explosion of political writing. Between 1776 and 1800, Americans produce approximately 2,300 political pamphlets, totaling over 10 million printed pages. This vast literary output creates a new political vocabulary, transforming abstract Enlightenment principles into practical governance tools. Terms like checks and balances, separation of powers, and federal republic emerge from theoretical concepts into working political mechanisms. The revolution's intellectual impact particularly manifests in educational transformation. College founding accelerates dramatically. While only 9 colleges existed in colonial America, 19 new institutions emerged between 1782 and 1802. These schools explicitly embrace Republican principles, training students in both classical learning and practical sciences. By 1800, American higher education enrolls approximately 1,200 students annually, a 300% increase from pre-revolutionary levels. Scientific inquiry gains new prominence in American intellectual life. The American Philosophical Society, under Benjamin Franklin's leadership, grows from 78 members in 1776 to 256 by 1800. Its investigations span astronomy, agriculture, medicine, and technology, embodying the revolution's faith in rational progress. Society members conduct approximately 1,500 documented experiments between 1780 and 1800, establishing new standards for empirical research. The revolution transforms legal thinking about fundamental rights. State constitutions codify specific protections. By 1800, all 16 states guarantee freedom of religion, 14 protect freedom of the press, and 12 ensure jury trials in civil cases. This systematic enumeration of rights represents a revolutionary innovation, transforming traditional English common law principles into explicit constitutional guarantees. Economic thought undergoes similar revolution. Americans develop distinctive ideas about property rights, commercial regulation, and monetary policy. Alexander Hamilton's 1790 Report on Public Credit introduces sophisticated concepts of public finance, while his report on manufactures the following year presents a comprehensive theory of economic development. These documents, totaling over 140,000 words, establish new frameworks for understanding the relationship between government and economy. The revolution profoundly influences philosophical discussions of human nature. Benjamin Rush's medical writings connect political liberty with physical and mental health, producing approximately 85 essays on the relationship between republican government and human well-being. His 1786 Inquiry into the Effects of Public Punishments advocates prison reform based on revolutionary principles of human dignity and potential rehabilitation. Language itself evolves to reflect new political realities. Noah Webster's linguistic projects beginning with his 1783 spelling book, aimed to create distinctively American forms of expression. His works standardize American spelling patterns, dropping the British U from words like colour and simplifying center to center. By 1800, these innovations reach approximately 385,000 students through his educational materials. Religious thought experiences dramatic reformation. Approximately 65% of American religious pamphlets published between 1780 and 1800 engage explicitly with political themes, reinterpreting scripture through revolutionary lenses. Religious leaders develop new theologies, emphasizing individual conscience and voluntary association, with Baptist and Methodist denominations growing by approximately 300% between 1780 and 1800. The revolution's intellectual impact extends to architecture and urban planning. Thomas Jefferson's designs for the Virginia state capitol introduced classical Republican architectural principles to American civic buildings. By 1800, approximately 40% of new public buildings in state capitals incorporate similar neoclassical elements, physically embodying revolutionary political ideals. Print culture expands dramatically to circulate these new ideas. The number of American printing houses grows from 50 in 1775 to 203 by 1800. Book production increases from approximately 461 titles in 1776, 1,775 to 1,797 in 1800. This expansion creates new networks for intellectual exchange. By 1800, a book published in Boston can reach Philadelphia within 6 days and Charleston within 3 weeks. The Revolution's philosophical legacy proves particularly influential in concepts of citizenship and civic virtue. Americans developed new theories about public participation, voluntary association, and civic education. By 1800, approximately 2,000 voluntary associations operate across the nation, from library societies to reform organizations, creating new spaces for civic engagement and political discourse. Historical consciousness itself transforms as Americans grapple with their revolution's meaning. Between 1770 and 1700, Americans publish approximately 175 historical works examining the revolution's causes and consequences. This historical reflection helps create an American national identity based on shared revolutionary experiences and principles, rather than traditional ethnic or religious ties. By 1800, the American Revolution has established new paradigms for thinking about human nature, society, and political possibility. Its intellectual legacy extends far beyond specific political arrangements to encompass fundamental questions about human potential and social organization. The revolution has not just created new political institutions, it has fostered new ways of thinking that continue to influence global intellectual development, demonstrating the enduring power of revolutionary ideas to reshape human understanding. A digital scan reveals something extraordinary in Thomas Jefferson's rough draft of the Declaration of Independence. Spectral imaging technology detects 70 distinct layers of revisions, showing how Jefferson wrestled with each phrase, each word choice. The document's evolution mirrors a larger truth. The American Revolution's principles continue to develop and resonate, constantly reinterpreted through the lens of new challenges and aspirations. Modern democratic movements draw direct inspiration from revolutionary precedents. Between 1950 and 2000, approximately 81% of new national constitutions include explicit references to concepts first articulated in American revolutionary documents. The idea of a written constitution, enumerated rights, and checks and balances, revolutionary innovations in 1787, have become standard features of democratic governance worldwide. When South Africa drafted its post-apartheid constitution in 1994, its authors specifically studied the American federal system's mechanisms for balancing regional and national power. The revolution's influence on military thought persists into the modern era. Contemporary military doctrine about asymmetric warfare traces directly to American revolutionary tactics. The Continental Army's integration of regular forces with militia, its use of terrain and mobility, and its strategic targeting of enemy logistics all find echoes in modern military planning. The US Army's current field manual, FM 324, on counterinsurgency explicitly references lessons from British failures in the American Revolution. Environmental DNA analysis at Revolutionary War sites reveals unprecedented details about daily life during the conflict. Soil samples from Valley Forge contain approximately 300 distinct genetic signatures, providing new insights into soldiers' diets, health conditions, and even the presence of camp followers. This scientific evidence enriches our understanding of how ordinary people experienced and survived revolutionary upheaval, connecting past struggles to present human experiences. The revolution's economic innovations continue shaping modern financial systems. The United States Federal Reserve traces its intellectual lineage to debates between Hamilton and Jefferson about national banking. Modern sovereign debt markets still operate on principles first established during the revolution's financial consolidation. When emerging nations today wrestle with questions of debt and development, they often reference American precedents for managing post-revolutionary economic challenges. Digital humanities projects reveal new patterns in revolutionary-era social networks. Analysis of approximately 25 million pieces of correspondence from the period shows how revolutionary ideas spread through complex webs of personal relationships. Modern social movement theorists study these historical patterns to understand how ideas and activism propagate through both physical and digital networks. The Sons of Liberty's communication methods find parallels in contemporary social media-driven movements. The revolution's impact on indigenous rights discourse remains particularly relevant. Modern Native American legal claims often reference the 1784 Treaty of Fort Stanwix, which established precedents for nation-to-nation relationships. Archaeological studies reveal approximately 2,300 sites related to Native American participation in revolutionary events, providing new perspectives on indigenous agency and resistance. These historical patterns inform ongoing debates about sovereignty and self-determination. Climate science adds new dimensions to revolutionary understanding. Tree ring analysis shows that the years 1775 to 1783 experienced unusually severe weather patterns affecting military campaigns and civilian life. Temperature reconstructions indicate that Valley Forge's winter of 1777 to 1778 was approximately 2.5 degrees Celsius colder than the 20th century average. This environmental context helps explain logistical challenges and strategic decisions while connecting revolutionary experiences to modern climate concerns. Genetic studies reveal the revolution's demographic legacy. DNA analysis of modern Americans shows approximately 35% have ancestors who lived in the colonies during the revolutionary period. This biological connection parallels ongoing cultural inheritance. Phrases, ideas, and political principles from the revolution remain deeply embedded in American social DNA. When modern protesters invoke revolutionary slogans, they tap into both historical and genetic memory. The revolution's influence on civil rights movements continues evolving. Modern activists regularly reference the Declaration of Independence's principles, while advocating for social justice. The document's assertion of human equality has been cited in approximately 12,000 civil rights court cases since 1950. Each generation reinterprets revolutionary principles through the lens of contemporary struggles, demonstrating the idea's enduring adaptability. Medical archaeology at Revolutionary War sites provides new insights into historical healthcare challenges. Analysis of approximately 1,800 skeletal remains shows patterns of disease, nutrition, and medical treatment that inform modern public health approaches. The Continental Army's development of systematic inoculation programs during a 1777 smallpox outbreak established precedents for modern military medical protocols. Technological innovation enables new understanding of revolutionary military engineering. LiDAR scanning of battlefield sites reveals approximately 3,500 previously unknown defensive works, showing how armies adapted tactical doctrine to specific terrain. These discoveries influence modern military site selection and force protection strategies, while demonstrating the revolution's continued relevance to military science. The American Revolution's legacy extends far beyond its immediate historical context. Its principles of human rights, democratic governance, and constitutional order continue evolving through modern challenges. Its military innovations inform contemporary conflict theory. Its social transformations provide models for modern movements. Most importantly, its fundamental assertion that humans can consciously reshape their political and social systems remains a powerful force in global development. As we face modern challenges of climate change, technological disruption, and social justice, the revolution's legacy offers both inspiration and practical guidance. Its example shows how determined individuals can transform ideas into action, how principles can adapt to new circumstances, and how the human aspiration for liberty and justice continues renewing itself through successive generations. The American Revolution remains not just a historical event, but a living source of insight and inspiration for human progress.